pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approve agenda. Move to approve. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Public comments? Consent agenda? Move to approve. Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Old business. Consider approval of police pay plan.
The plan was sent out to you on Monday. It's reprinted in the packet. It is what you gave direction for last week.
Any discussion on that? Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Darren,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
John,
Yes. Consider approval of Rocky Mountain Institute E-Lab Accelerator.
Here's the copy of the almost complete application. Just needs a couple lines on supplemental materials. The team is the same, with the exception that Jen Cronin is still tentative, but I have letters of support from all of the other participants, you know, that they're both interested and think this would be good for the community and for the state. Numbers are the same still. I expect our proportion to come down below 5,000, but right now that's where we are as an estimate.
I would move that we approve the program for the Rocky Mountain Institute Lab Accelerator. I'll second that.
Any discussion?
John,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes. New business. Consider approval of city council's appointments for the following: Mayor Pro Tem, Fire Chief, Chief of Police, official newspaper. I think easiest and fastest way to do this is if there's no objections to who's in that office now, we'll just approve it all at one time. Darren's Mayor Pro Tem, McClure the Fire Chief, Sean Police Chief, and Bloomfield Democrat as a newspaper. Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Scott,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Consider approval of mayor's recommendations for liaisons for the following: Historic Preservation, Parks and Rec, Mutual Center, Public Safety, Bloomfield Main Street, Library Board of Trustees, Regional Services, Area 15 Regional Planning, E911 Board, DCDC, and DCDC revolving loan. Gonna do the same thing there if everybody's fine with what they're on.
You're saying a reappointment then?
Just reappoint as is. You okay with that?
Move to approve the mayor's reappointments to those committees and boards.
Second.
Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Earl.
Yes.
Hey, Dan, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why is the airport commission left off that list?
They don't have anybody up this year.
Who's currently appointed to that?
Last year, they made a motion to not have liaisons to
Oh, that's right.
different things, and the airport commission was one.
We're gonna bring that back up at a later date. The liaison issue. So, if you guys want a liaison.
It's frustrating to have spending $80,000 city money and nobody brings it back to you guys to know what we're doing. We just received a grant for $365,000 that starts this year that Gary knows about because I talked to him about. You guys have no idea what we're doing. So that's frustrating from a commission chairman's position.
And another thing I think would be good is if quarterly, if the chair people from the commissions actually, come to a meeting and kind of give a report a little bit too. We're gonna talk about that in a later date also, but I understand we've had a couple other ones that would like something, so. Once we get done through the budget, we'll have time to
Okay.
work on that. Thanks. Approve resolution reappointing Sam Ford to the Board of Adjustments.
This one was a vacancy.
His term was
He termed up, and you're saying that he wants to come back.
Second. Any discussion?
Earl,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes. Approve resolution fixing date for a meeting on the authorization of the loan agreement and the issuance of not to exceed $2,050,000 general obligation capital loan notes of the city of Bloomfield, state of Iowa for essential corporate purposes and providing for publication of notice thereof.
The $2,050,000 number is in recognition of financing the placement cost, which is a typical procedure for placing a $2 million bond. This inducement resolution actually establishes February 7th as the day for the public hearing and then authorization at that time to go out to sale for the bonds. The intent then is that we go out for sale, and on February 21st, the sale would be complete, and the council would be asked to authorize that sale. Shortly thereafter, we would be getting the money. As I indicated at the last council meeting, it's been the advice of our financial advisor from Northland Securities that we actually fast track this as opposed to just do a preliminary resolution that could get us a slot in our budget. That in fact, this sale is being done because market conditions have dictated it's best that we go out to market as quick as possible. We're still hearing that we're probably looking at 15 to 25 basis points less than what the estimate was. That means that at this point in time, we're hoping that a annual cost of top of my head here, I think it's $215,000 a year is what we're hoping for. But it's going to be somewhere in that range, plus or minus probably $10,000. So all you're doing now is this indicating that you would have this public hearing at the next regularly scheduled council meeting, not counting our special meetings.
Move to approve.
Any discussion?
Scott,
Yes.
Darren,
Yeah.
Jack.
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Consider approval of a resolution providing for the financial support of the Area 15 Regional Planning Commission.
Move to approve resolution providing for the financial support for the Area 15 Regional Planning Commission.
Any discussion?
Darren,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Consider request for utility assistance by Davis County Daycare.
I'm Joni Helton. I'm president of the Davis County Daycare and Preschool. Board members Jason Bell, Jerry Kincart, Director Karen Lauer. And we're here to make the City Council aware of some of the issues that have occurred over the past year, which have caused financial hardships for our daycare center. We're trying to come up with solutions so we can continue to be a quality childcare option for the Davis County community. Currently, the Davis County Daycare and Preschool has 17 employees, generating salaries of $22,000 per month. We serve 50 families, in which 19 of those families are receiving child care assistance. Our total enrollment is 83 children. Approximately 1 year ago, January 28th to be exact, it was discovered that sewer had backed up into our building. This required us to close temporarily. After 8 days of not being able to offer child care to our families, we relocated for 3 months at the First Baptist Church. Before the sewer backup, the Davis County School District was renting 2 rooms at the center to house their preschool programs, and they too had to relocate for the remainder of the school year. We lost a significant amount of income from the school district, and at this time, there was also a drop in enrollment due to the uncertainty of continued operation of the center. During this time, it was discovered that a fiber optics line installed for CenturyLink was placed through the center of our sewer line, which resulted in the sewer backup in the daycare facility. After months of unsuccessfully dealing with the companies at fault, in April, we attained a lawyer in hopes of reaching a settlement. We're currently in litigation. We reopened our doors at the center to the families and children of Davis County in April. We used our reserve funds to purchase the materials needed, and the work was done by a host of volunteers. Those wonderful people worked tirelessly and saved us countless dollars in labor costs. When we drained our reserve funds, we were then unable to pay our yearly $22,080 loan payment to the USDA. We've established a workout plan with them. We're asking the council to forgive our utility bill for 6 months. This would allow us to take care of our outstanding bills that we've not been able to pay on a regular basis due to the loss of income from lost families and flooding issues. The forgiveness would give us time to get back on our feet again. We know, as do you, that the lack of quality child care is an ongoing crisis in Davis County. In order for our community to flourish with young working families and new businesses opening, quality child care is a necessary resource. For the last year, Davis County has been considered a child care desert. What's a child care desert? A child care desert is a census tract with more than 50 children under age 5 that contains either no child care providers or so few options that there are more than 3 times as many children as licensed child care slots. With the help from the City Council, this would allow us to continue to provide quality child care to our families and take enrollment of other families needing assistance. The Davis County Daycare and Preschool has been very fortunate to be able to continue the quality child care program over this almost last year, and we truly want to continue the tradition that was put into place over 40 years ago. So once again, we're asking for utility forgiveness for the next 6 months. And if you have any questions, you can try and answer them.
On an average, how much is your utility bill?
For approximately the last year, it's ran between $1,100 and $1,500 up until a month ago. It dropped down to $600 and some. Well, we're still trying to figure out why it dropped so drastically in that. I think it went from $1,500 to $680, I believe.
You know which utility that was,
No, I don't.
what the difference is?
No, I haven't. I didn't look at it closely enough until I brought it to the attention of the city council or my board of directors. So yeah, it went down drastically.
Might be gas in
I better guess, check that gas meter.
So maybe it's been wrong all these years, maybe?
Nice try, Jody.
Is that what you said?
Maybe just don't go check it for 6 months.
That's a great idea.
And we are meeting with the board of supervisors on Tuesday morning too. So it's just not you guys that we're going to ask for help.
Jody, I got a question. I don't wanna sound rude and greedy, but I mean, obviously you guys are in litigation.
Right.
If we agree to give you a 6 months waiver, are you guys looking to pay the city back some, or this is just or you guys discussed that?
We did not discuss
not.
that.
And like I said, I don't wanna sound greedy
Right.
asking a
Right.
question, but
No, we have not discussed that. When we sent a packet and you saw the picture of the,
sure.
yeah, and we just thought that made it so obvious that someone would take care of this problem for us, and we're still fighting, and we don't know how long it's going to go on.
Do you know how much your legal bills will be?
He's doing it, and depending on,
It's like 40% of, I believe 40% of what we get from the company.
And this is called Davis County Daycare, but this is a private enterprise, not a,
it's nonprofit.
It's private.
No.
it's not a government-run organization, it's county or city.
No.
So it's a private corporation that owns it.
No.
Who owns it?
Davis County Daycare was originally established by the Davis County Development Corporation, Bloomfield, Main Street. And the city came into the fracas with it on a presentation from USDA loan, Mr. Dowdy, the Davis County Development Corporation, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Simmons. And I don't remember who was on the Main Street board at that time that made the presentation. But both boards were there when they made the presentation to the council. The Davis County Daycare was founded as a nonprofit organization to furnish child care for citizens. I mean, we were not limited to just Davis County citizens. Anybody that came could come. So no, and there was a board structured. Each organization was to have a member on the board, the Development Corporation, Bloomfield Main Street, Bloomfield City Council, and the supervisors at first participated with a representative on the board. Since that time, a lot of people have fell off. I was put on the board when I was on the council 40 years ago when it was first presented. I was on the board for 6 years, and then Craig Scott was appointed, and he was on the board, and then later on, I can't even remember, Earl was on the board, and then I followed Earl after that, and I've been on the board ever since, except for my 3.5 years I was in Texas. So, but as far as a private corporation, no. As far as ownership, it's owned, I don't know really how you would explain who's owned it. The profit goes right back in, if there is any profit, goes right back into the, building maintenance, ongoing. We've got 83 kids down there now and they go through stuff pretty handily. So, no, there's never any profit that we have to deal with. But have I answered your questions, Dan? I mean,
So it's like the country club, nobody owns it?
Are you a subsidiary of the county?
I mean,
I'm sorry.
somebody's gotta, be responsible for it.
The board of directors is responsible for the operation of the Davis County Daycare, and the board of directors consists of, we have like 3 or 4 individuals from the community, and most of them are parents of the children that come, and then the council, the Davis County Development, Bloomfield Main Street, and the Davis County Board of Supervisors should make up the balance of that.
Do they still?
No,
Mr. Kincaid?
yes,
Kincard, I'm sorry.
no, that's fine.
Are you a subsidiary of Davis County? In other words, are you affiliated with Davis County's government?
No,
Okay. I think what you are is a non-for-profit organization,
yes,
not affiliated directly with the government. You have government people on your board of directors, but you do not, there's no 28E agreement here.
no,
So what you are really is a private non-for-profit. You can have private non-for-profits. The YMCA is a private non-for-profit.
mhm.
I think that's the status that you are. I think that was the basis of the question that the council was asking.
Okay, yes,
Okay,
that, yeah, that would be correct.
okay.
But the loan agreement that was handled by the USDA and these other organizations structured what the board should be made up of. I mean, the entities that should have representatives on the board.
But that loan agreement is really between you and your board and.
Yes,
And USDA, okay. so-
and the Davis County Community School District.
So is there representatives from all them organizations on your board?
No,
No,
So then you're not
Joni
going by the
serves
contract?
Joni serves as a representative from
School.
the school.
You don't have anybody, no supervisor, no city?
Nope,
You took
No,
it
we
off
did up
last
until
year.
just a few years ago. And then when the funding that the city put in ended, then we didn't send anybody to their board anymore.
Sounds to me like the way it's structured there, we're still supposed to have somebody on it.
according to the loan agreement
Bylaws.
and the grant, yes.
What about DCDC and Main Street?
I don't disagree. I just,
They've been on our
You know,
board
and
before,
and
and
it's something,
they
Dan,
don't come.
yeah,
We
it's
changed some of that too.
it's a situation, all the board member would not necessarily have to be a city councilman. It could be a person appointed by the city as a liaison, is what airport or other organizations have.
It depends on how your bylaws are written. If it says they're to be on the board, then they have to be on the board. If it's just a representative, then the liaison works.
Yeah,
But if they have to be on the board,
I believe the agreement says a representative of the city council.
okay, so then we could have a liaison.
Yeah,
The difference in the utilities is water and sewer, they went from 50,000 to 12,000 in terms of the consumption drop last month. So has there been a change in operation?
No.
no.
everything has stayed the same.
Would it have been during your remodeling time that?
No, it has not ended any.
We've done
Swap
that.
their meter out.
School water and football field up here, guys.
That's a great idea.
We don't know. That might be part of your utility abatement right there.
Doesn't sound like an awful lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot more.
It's a big, the standard billing that we've been getting on utilities, and then the newest billing that we got it's, you know, like $500 and some odd drop in expenses, and it doesn't, you know, you can see a couple $100 somewhere. But yeah, we're doing some energy efficient things down there, trying to cut our overhead with electricity, but we haven't done nothing that great.
Makes you wonder whether the water was right before now.
There's this water that's a problem.
Which of course affects sewer as well.
Right.
So prior to this issue, I mean, you guys been able to
Running to live.
sustain yourself? I mean,
I'm sorry, Scott?
I said prior to this issue, which, the sewer backing up, you guys have been able to.
Sustain ourselves, yes.
Yes, we were making our loan payment every
Yes.
year.
But they were doing.
The big problem was we had to take that money to put it in. And there was 4 individuals down there, 4 to 6 individuals that we did the work, and they furnished materials. Well, you know, the Pulaski Lumber and the True Value store out here did cut us some good deals on the material. You know, really worked with us very well, and but so thank you.
Maybe it was a little bit related to them. I don't know. But it's not electric and gas, right?
I move we approve the request by the Davis County Daycare for assistance as they've requested.
Just a question, if we're gonna do this, when would you wanna have the 6 months start and then? As soon
As soon as possible,
Yeah,
yeah.
preferably if we, you
Next
know,
month's bill?
it would help,
Right now,
help us with our cash flow and catching up on our bills if we could have it as soon as possible.
So
But
January.
we understand the logistics of getting everything done. And then from that date, then 6 months. January to June. That'd be good. That'd be fine. If it can work that way.
I'm not gonna say much more, because I run a daycare also. And just make sure we're not starting a precedence. Because they're probably not the only ones struggling.
no, but we're the only ones besides you providing care for
I
low-income
got
families.
166 kids.
Yeah,
You're full.
and we're nonprofit, you're for-profit.
That's just how you're structured. I guarantee you probably got more profit than I do.
I made the motion.
Oh, I'll second it. I don't see how we cannot try to support this. I think that, I'm gonna put my 2 cents in here. I hate it that you're struggling. I can see why, and so, if we extend a hand here, we would expect to see some reports of where you're going, I think. And I know that you're doing all you can probably, but probably need to get some reports back to you, or back to us, if you wouldn't mind. Let us know how things are coming along, and we'd like to see the progress moving forward for you.
Just as a question, I seriously doubt you'll be made whole by your lawsuit, but if you are made whole by your lawsuit, is there any sort of repayment of the
Now, Scott was asking that
Utilities?
before too, so.
Darren, I can't honestly answer that.
Well, I mean, I'm
Right
just
now,
saying,
because we don't.
in the unlikely event you're made whole by your
Right.
lawsuit,
Right.
then that would put you back to where you were before the incident, and not in need of utility assistance.
We hope. Yes, because we don't know where this direction is gonna go. And we took out a $16,000 loan, signature loan through, although the lending institutions to help us finish getting the building ready after we had used our reserve funds. But as far as what John has asked about being kept abreast of stuff, in our agreement with the USDA about our reorganizational plans, we're going to be furnishing them a financial statement monthly. And I think we would be happy to share it with the council to show you where we're headed, that way.
Well, I think whether it's a liaison or a member on the board, I think some of our liaison eliminations were a little wide sweeping.
Mhm.
Jack?
Yes.
Darren?
Yeah.
John?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Earl?
Yes.
Thank you.
Consider and discuss organization of Mutual Center Parks and Rec function. I put that on there because there seems to be a lot of confusion between them and us. Whose duties are what and who's responsible for what and how it's laid out. And John and Earl both was on the council when they set that organization up. And I think there's a lot of people confused as to how it's set up. I guess just kind of looking for how it's supposed to be set up.
On the 2080 or what?
How
would Taylor's function or what?
whose directions under who gives direction to who.
Taylor's, correct me if I'm wrong, but Taylor's wages are split between the county and us, right?
I'm not worried about who pays who, it's how it's.
So that would say that she would be, I guess, directed by both of us. Do you agree with that?
Agree.
That's what I understand. That's for the Muchler Center. But then also, she functions for us in Parks and Recs, correct? So it's.
My understanding of the Mutual Center is that they give direction to Taylor, not us.
The board.
Not the county, it's the board. There's also issues related to the status of her employment. Technically, she's a city employee. She's covered by IPERS. She runs through the city's payroll. She is, and I'm talking about in the context of Mutual Center right now. It's an odd situation because that board of directors effectively directs a city employee. And I have on this agenda later a question about how you want to budget for the Mutual Center and Parks and Rec. To make this situation clearer and to segregate these responsibilities from the standpoint of their employment status, I have to raise the question whether in fact Taylor's position should be owned and operated by the Mutual Center. And how that would be accomplished is effectively how it's being done now with the county. Is they give money to the Mutual Center, but they don't have her as an employee. From the context of the city, should we likewise just give money to the Mutual Center and she is their employee? That's a question. Not that we still have the Park and Rec function out there also. That has to be discussed. But as far as the management of the Mutual Center, that is classically the board's responsibility. And there has never been a clear distinction as to how this is supposed to work from the standpoint of her being a city employee, but then what does that mean in the context of mutual center?
Well, what it was is she became a city employee to fall under benefits package. Is the reason. And so for Mutual Center to buy insurance coverage for one person and those types of things, it was deemed at the time that that was something that the city could do. And then she would fall under the benefits package of the city, which would save everybody money in the long run.
In other words, as part of the city's contribution to the Mutual Center, that included her employment package to get her.
Right. Just like plowing the snow down there, the city agreed to do that to save them money.
Okay. And how long?
Because it was,
How long have we done it?
I don't know how long we've done it. We've done it for several years. And it was it was for the good of the community.
Right, right. So, and we pay equally into her costs from the standpoint of the county and the city from the standpoint of the mutual center. Where do we get more service from her because of the park and rec then? Is that the rationale for it?
That's part of the rationale.
So we're paying, because I don't know the history here.
Right.
So we're paying extra for the IPERS and the FICA and the health insurance. Because we are,
Half of that should be coming back to us from the county.
Well, actually, good.
is it?
Is it half Parks and Rec, half Mutual Center?
It's half Mutual Center, a fourth county, and a fourth city is how her wages get paid.
The wages and the benefits, Sandy, all of that?
Yes, I figured a total dollar amount for her wages and her benefits. And then every month, the Mutual Center writes a check to us for half of it.
3/4 of it. Because the county gives their money to them, don't they, and then they give it to us.
That's the way it's supposed to work. I assume it does.
So we should be getting 3/4 from them.
Correct.
Do we know how much time, Taylor, you spend working in the mutual center versus park and rec?
You don't know how many hours I put at the rec center?
Vis-a-vis park and rec.
Sure, it varies during the time of the year.
I'm at the rec center a lot. I deal with the pool a lot too.
We've never requested her to keep track of those hours. So,
The question,
I don't have to deal necessarily a lot with the Parks and Rec because there was a guy hired underneath me to do all the maintenance of the pool, of the ball fields. To where I was able to keep my hours at the rec center knowing that it needed somebody there.
so the rec center is predominant function for you as opposed
Correct.
to 50/50.
Correct.
Okay.
I would agree.
What is it that we have with the pool that isn't done by Jill? What functions do you do at the pool that's not done by Jill?
What functions do I do? Jill runs it. Robbie goes every morning and checks all the chemicals and does that. And does the maintenance at the pool.
Okay. So you're saying that the pool is not, actual work that you do is not a whole lot on the pool?
I've done a lot of work at the pool.
Well, what,
I've painted the pool before.
okay. On an ongoing basis, what do you do? Do you do much on an ongoing basis other than that maintenance painting?
I go up there at least 3 times a week. And I talk to Jill about what's going on, and if we have any issues, then we bring Robbie into the situation.
Like
Any
getting bids for
maintenance.
cement, setting of the sandblasting and painting it and getting it ready in the spring and all that. You set that up
Yes.
and making sure it's closed up in the fall and all that stuff,
Right.
you manage that part of it
Right,
with Jill or?
correct.
We don't know, you don't have a relative estimate as far as percentage is concerned of what you spend in mutual center versus park and rec?
No.
Do you have a guess?
A lot at the rec center.
The other piece of this pie is Robbie.
I'd like to talk about that too.
And that's what this is.
I'm just trying to figure out right now where Taylor's function is here.
This is budgetary stuff. I mean, we're
That's
trying
right.
to figure out percentage so we can figure out how these numbers are gonna line out. And
But this goes
I
back to a
don't know that
long-standing
you can-
agreement that you guys made
Yep.
years ago to provide this. Regardless of the equity of the situation, that was the agreement.
I am not arguing the point of agreement. I'm looking at it from an equity standpoint. I have to ask the question here. Is there value here that the city is getting that it exceeds what we're paying into it? It's like any other budgetary situation. We have to look and find out where we are making our commitments. If in fact we need to recognize that there is more money that's being placed into here, that we need to budget it that way. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. All I'm saying is that, and when we start talking about Robbie's function, we need to perhaps budget more money, because right now there's a lot of costs that are off the books related to park and rec function that we are not accounting for. And
I think for this
the basis of
discussion, you guys are getting off base. This is not budget discussion.
It is.
This is organization discussion as far as who is whose boss and who answers to who. That's organization. Budget is later on down
The budget becomes integral to that discussion.
but we're doing that later tonight. For
Okay.
that part of it. This is the organization as far as who answers to who does what, all that portion of it.
Our organizational chart says that the park and rec function reports to the city administrator.
And then the Parks and Rec labor falls under the Parks and Rec director, which is Robbie.
What was that?
The 28E says the rec director shall be an employee of the city who reports to the city council, and will not have an employee status with the commission or the center. And then she oversees any employees, and the commission is responsible for any employees that she hires.
So if the commission is responsible for employees, does that mean that the commission has the responsibility of the compensation?
You see what it says?
And the liabilities related?
I'm not certain that that is specifically addressed in the 2080 agreement. The 2080 agreement that I'm looking at, I just pulled up the one that's been filed with the Iowa Secretary of State. So it's one that was effective January 1 of 2014, and it's an annual agreement. It just talks about the funding for the director. And the commission has fiduciary responsibility for all other employees. Oh, it does say something here, sorry. Other than the rec director, the commission shall have the ultimate responsibility for hiring, evaluating, and discharging or terminating employees for the center. That responsibility shall include paying for said employees' salaries. It also sets the amount that the commission is supposed to pay, and I don't know if that's been adjusted at any point.
No.
Kayla, does that mean that she's an employee of the city?
Yes, this agreement specifically says she is an employee of the city.
And the board is responsible for the supervision of the entire,
Council is responsible for the supervision the director.
Taylor.
Okay, and with the new city administrator function, is that now modified?
I would say that may be something that needs to be addressed in a revision to the 2080
I
agreement.
think the flow chart has been changed, but I don't think the 2080 matches it.
I
Because in your,
clearly understand that.
because it has the Parks and Rec director under your function,
That's right.
but the 2080 agreement has not been changed to address that.
I agree. That is as much a concern that we have internally from an organizational standpoint.
And that's the
How
reason
that
for
works.
this is
I agree.
because there's 3 different things that say 3 different things. We need to
I
figure
agree.
it out and make them all match.
So then let's ask the question, how do you want to do it? I mean, is there a responsibility for us to supervise Taylor, or is that something that should just be done by the mutual center? And then how does that work in the context of the park and rec function, which is a city function? We don't know.
I can tell you that there are extensive notes related to that negotiation with the county. And I recall being physically present at Rick Lynch's office when the city, the county, and the commission all sat down to sign this document. I'd have to go back and try and find those notes, but I'm more than happy to do that. I didn't realize that was on tonight's agenda. Sounds to me like an event
Is it
that
something we need to
convene.
table to a later date to
Well,
get more
I think
information?
we need to do that. I think,
Yeah.
Gail, does it mean that we should sit down with Rick and try and figure that out?
Yeah, either that or, I mean, Dale Taylor was the representative of the county that was,
Present.
that signed.
I mean, here's my concern for short term, we've got some complaints from the mutual center of some of this different things. With Robbie being taken away from that function, Taylor has nobody to take care of that stuff. So that's my concern, my present concern. I think until we get it straightened out, we need to put Robbie back where he was. It's to help with them issues like it was actually set up before until we figure it out.
So would the 2080
Right.
agreement be the binding issue, Galen?
I believe that it would be.
I would agree with that. The question is, what does that 28 agreement mean in the context of these questions? Robbie's a whole different story in and of itself, because first of all, Robbie is covered by a union contract. There's recognition in the union contract that he is a part-time park and rec function and part-time streets function or public works function. Is Robbie an employee of the mutual center?
No.
John saying no.
But there was discussion about the city having responsibilities in connection with the Muchler Center.
The mutual center
Maintenance.
commission and the Parks and Rec commission both have the understanding that, no, Robbie doesn't hang out down there all the time, but if they have some light maintenance that needs done, that he used to be available to do it.
And his responsibilities would then supersede our direction.
He is not he's under her direction.
Well, that's a question, because in the union contract, it
That's what I'm
doesn't say.
trying, I mean, that's how it was set up.
The way it was
Okay.
set up.
So,
When Taylor didn't need him, then he worked for the city.
And if you needed him, sometimes maybe when she did, that was to be for you and their board to work out between yourselves that problem.
That's right.
Spend a lot more time at the city in the summer and a lot more time at Muchler Center in the winter, taking care of stuff that had been,
is that the understanding? Because I don't know, is that the understanding?
that's how
that
it's been.
I think that's the understanding from, and I'm not saying that it doesn't need looked at and it doesn't need changed and everything needs to match. I'm just saying that we don't go and change it until we change the paperwork that goes with it.
I don't disagree. I think the question here is that from our perspective, from a managerial's perspective, it would be helpful if we had clear lines of distinction.
And that's what I brought this up for, because that's what we need. We need to get it
I'm
done.
not disagreeing.
I think we've talked about that many times.
Right, right, and when we get the complaints about the mutual center,
But don't end up coming to the mutual center.
They just need to be directed to the mutual center.
right? And I did that actually most recently. But I think the real question here is there a better way to have an understanding about these lines? Because it's difficult for us to manage if in fact we have one set of rules over here and another set of rules over here.
It is hard. We've got that
And
scenario in
it's
a
gonna
whole
be.
lot of different areas that need to be looked at and changed.
And what I'm saying is there a different way that we could clarify that? By more appropriately saying, this is, we don't blur this park and rec line and mutual center. Is there a better way that we can do that? Because,
Well, it worked better when Ted was the city's liaison to the mutualer board, and
Well-
Ted was the DPW, and so it worked a lot smoother. And since then, it's kind of fallen apart.
well, Earl, as you and John explained to me, how these services have been delivered have changed from person to person over the years.
It has.
And it is, there's no consistency about how that service is delivered.
Do you have a recommendation?
I'm still trying to find out just exactly what the field of play is here.
I just got another comment, just to make sure, and we've had some labor issues, and then also with, especially in overtime and some clocking hours and that kind of stuff. So the biggest thing is when the union, when it comes to overtime must be put for bid. So, the oldest may, youngest must. So we're not getting that overtime bid out properly, and then there's some other issues with.
But it's within his department though.
It's their operator, job
Union-
classification.
Union contract.
Union contracts, job classification, it's not about position.
And if Robbie is a part of that union, then all those union rules apply, I'm assuming, to the mutual center.
Operator class, everybody but 4 people, everybody's operators. I don't like the classification.
Those classifications have been here forever.
Not saying that's something else that don't need to put.
And I just want to put that out there so we just make sure everybody's at the table. I mean, you gotta have that.
But here's the thing though,
though.
it's been like this, the contract's been that way for years, and this has been set up this way for years. I think you're digging for some way to screw up the whole plan by bringing this up, because it's never been a problem before.
We're trying to address this in the context of the responsibilities we have to do to manage it, inclusive of a union contract.
And so until somebody makes a complaint, until somebody gets hurt, then the liability is gonna come up and try to overcome the objection before it happens. When you
But I
drop a
mean,
tree on the
he's-
truck,
That's his department, there's overtime in that department. Do you send him home and bring somebody else in to do his job?
And in fact,
I'm not sure who wrote that contract.
that's actually asked me why, the state of Iowa asked me, that's. it's just,
and in context, if Robbie started to do overtime work at the mutual center, he could get bounced very quickly if the union so desired. These are practical questions that we have. We're not trying to say we shouldn't do this. We're trying to just determine how do we have the lines of authority here so that we can manage things such as a union contract.
But I don't think for the short time being until we can discuss it and get it fixed, that overtime is a problem.
It is in the summer.
I'm saying for a short time period now, until we can get it fixed, I don't think overtime's not gonna be a problem till
Mayor, we're not looking to change it yesterday, okay? But we need to know how this is supposed to work. And I think this discussion right now is a good start. But we have very practical issues here that relates to the employees that we manage.
But Robbie is not under your he's not under your management is the problem.
It sounds to me like Robbie answers to Taylor, Taylor answers to the council itself for right now.
I think that,
I mean,
I think that there's plenty of grievance opportunities for ASME to contradict that.
well, but we can't just flip a switch tonight and change all that.
Darren, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that these are liabilities that we have sticking out there that need to be addressed.
Understood, but I mean, I'm just saying, until that happens,
I'm not disagreeing, but we're raising these issues because there is clearly problems with lines of authority here.
Well, the least thing that needs to happen is, like it states in the ordinance, at least need to go down and talk to the Parks and Rec Board and say, hey, we're trying to get this worked out. Can we have Robbie for the next 2 or 3 months to help with stuff in the city? And then you've got that covered, because that's the process you're supposed to go through to do it.
I'm not
I mean, I think
I'm not
we can make-
disagreeing, Mayor, I'm not.
But I think we can make it
But
simple.
let's talk about a practical management issue. We just now found out recently that Robbie goes down and collects the trash 2 or 3 times a week, puts it in a truck and carries it
Once.
off.
Monday mornings at 8 o'clock before.
Well, we've been told by,
There's been a couple times where there's been an event going on
Okay.
where it needs to be picked up, so I call him.
can we not just have it put in the dumpster, which is what we're now talking about? We're trying to be cost effective here too. We're breaking him away to go haul trash.
He does his rounds on Monday morning. He goes to the parks, ball fields. It's just another spot where he stops at the rec center for 5 minutes to pick up trash.
He does it now though, right? There's no ball field stuff going on now, right?
No, but there's people that still dump trash in trash cans from the Parks and Rec.
There are people who take their home trash to places like
Just like
that.
what's gonna happen in the dumpster at the end of the parking lot right now.
Here's another management issue. Robbie comes in once or twice a weekend to clear out the picnic shelters, right?
When there was reservations during the summer.
2-hour minimum callback. We get a $10 rental fee. We would raise this tonight. $2 minimum, 2-hour minimum, that's 66, it's time and a half, so it's $66. We get a $10 rental fee. I mean, do we have to
Pay
have,
for doing business.
well, do we have to have Robbie do that? Or could we hire
Do you want to? I don't.
Can we hire a seasonal employee and pay him $10?
The union contract, let us do that.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, these are the kinds of things that we were gonna be talking about in budget. These are very practical situations and there's a lot of overtime that he gets, that we get grumbles from other people and ask me, saying, how come he gets that overtime and we don't?
Like I said, I'm not saying there isn't issues with it. I'm just saying we can't capsize the boat.
Well, something has to be addressed, Mayor, when it's come to light, basically, like not clocking out for lunch, not taking breaks, all that's a violation of Department of Labor and Iowa labor laws. So we have to manage some of those things and make sure it's being done. I mean, we're open, we're opening ourselves up if we don't manage it.
But I mean, they do that on the phone, so it's not like you can't tell if they have it and who hasn't.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying, it's identified he's not, I mean, it's clear as
So
day,
that, you need to address that with him.
right, and we have.
Okay.
Can he then though, I guess that goes back to, that's the question.
Exactly, yeah, to go
Can
right
he do
there.
it? Or
Exactly.
does he do it?
So
Or
she
does-
needs to do it.
Right, that's what I'm saying, I mean, it's,
So,
But you need,
So you have
you
to
need
tell
to-
us, who has to tell Taylor, who'll tell him.
well, wait. She has her own function, she's an independent department head. Although the Public Works Department is supposed to manage Robbie from the standpoint of all of those things. Do we want to continue that or have that responsibility placed on Taylor?
the Parks and Rec responsibility is under Taylor.
Not the management of Robbie.
Yeah, because he's Parks
No,
and
that's
Rec.
not the way it was when I remember when they got the job posting. The way it happened, you remember, don't you, Jerry? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Remember when we got,
If Robbie is to be managed by Taylor, we have to change a lot of things. I don't
We
have a
always
problem
have,
with that.
it was a shared responsibility between Taylor and Ted. It was always that way. That's the way it was,
But
and
now,
now it's
the way the
changed.
new form is Taylor's under Gary and Robbie's under Taylor. That's the new form.
And as far as managing that is concerned from an operational standpoint, because 50% of Robbie is public works, I let Danny do that because that's really where it's at.
Well, then you're gonna have to change that too.
Can we just segregate Parks and Rec and then have the responsibility of all of that management? Still recognizing that because of the ASME contract, he can get bumped off of anything on an overtime basis.
I mean, that's what I want to figure this out, so we don't have to worry about it anymore. That's what I put it up here for, so.
All right, well, let me
all done tonight.
let me suggest this then to get this off the dime for tonight, is that we need to sit down with Gayla and Rick to have a clear understanding about that. And then come back with some recommendations, because this is really, as much as anything, trying to figure out how to budget this. Because I don't think the way that we're budgeting it right now clearly represents what the cost is for Parks and Recreation.
I know we spent an hour earlier today.
Well, but I mean, the real point that I'm making here is that we also don't have true costs of the swimming pool. Everybody says, well, the swimming pool about breaks even. No, it doesn't. And if we have these maintenance costs out there and it just kind of absorbs into the streets budget, that's not right. I mean, we need to have a true assessment of what that cost is, and then assumedly accountability of that management of those costs directly related to the people who do that. Now, are we saying that then in fact we make decisions about Park and Rec from the standpoint of, okay, what do we need out of Park and Rec? One of the things that is going to come forward in this budget making process is that we think that the cost of in-house mowing should actually be done by contract or by seasonal employees. So
We shut your phones off before the meeting starts. Sorry.
So if in fact that comes about and we know that a major portion of Robbie's time is done mowing, if we supplant that, because it's cheaper to do it the other way by seasonals or by contract, then the question is do you take that resource and say, okay, that's not a Park and Rec function, it now becomes a street function on a more deliberate basis? We don't have an answer tonight. I get that. But those are the questions that we're raising about this, because this is a management issue. We have employees that really, we're trying to figure out who reports to who. And we have liabilities because of this. I'm looking at one other situation here, and that is that, is there a way that we can truly just segregate the mutual center away from the city from the standpoint of its management? To the point where we don't have the financial responsibility directly, but just as a contribution. I mean, we've been carrying it from a standpoint of having the employee covered under our costs, our liabilities. Maybe it's time to ask the county it's their turn for a while. The numbers are going to be the same. It's just that there's a managerial responsibility. I'm not saying that's a solution. I'm just saying that that's an option to consider also.
Well, since we've been having a lot of complaints, or some complaints, I've heard a lot. Can we at least work with them for a while to let Robbie or somebody go down there for once in a while to help get some of the issues fixed? I mean, is there a reason we can't?
For the short term, we'll do it and recognize that we cross our fingers, because there's sometimes that we don't know whether in fact we're in violation of an ASME contract.
Those same guys complaining about that are the same guys who claim complained about somebody volunteering to paint fire hydrants.
Yeah, they're the same ones that complain that, and they never take the
They don't
call.
want to
They
do the
don't-
work.
They don't take the call. They wouldn't work the overtime anyhow.
That's right.
I think, right.
I mean, I'm just,
Those are the guys you need to get rid of.
I guess just for the short term, can we, I guess all get along so that we can kind of get the issues fixed down there, and we'll revisit it in the near future.
Well, I hope that what we would do is just answer this question through the budget making process,
All right.
okay? Earl, if somebody came and said, you know, I don't like the fact that somebody else is painting fire hydrants, they don't have a grievance that has standing.
I know that.
But if somebody came in and said, I want to do Robbie's overtime on lawn mowing, they have standing for that grievance,
That's too bad. That's the way it is. I understand.
and we lose.
Mhm. But most of them don't want it. They just want to complain about it.
Okay.
Only because
I'm just talking about our
because the
exposure.
options there for them to use.
Yeah, I'm talking about our exposure here.
Yep.
Not anything else other than that.
Tell them there's a lawnmower.
Well, I mean, we can talk about this a little bit later, but I mean, the question is I think we ought to do lawn mowing differently.
Consider approval of notification letter to Midwest Energy Finance LLC. John, can you take that? Would you like to make that presentation?
So I've been contacted by Chris with some information about some problems you've been having with the solar array. We looked at the contract. We talked about the items that consist of defaults or alleged defaults. We prepared for you so the contract requires that we provide them with a notice of the default. It allows them a 30-day period to correct the defaults. If the correction of the default will take longer than 30 days, then they have to initiate the correction within that 30-day period. And if they do not correct those, then there are some options available to you under the contract to resolve what that, what should happen at that point. So what we have done at this point is we have prepared a notice that tells them that they're in default. The defaults essentially are sent out in the letter, but it's failure to establish what's known as a commercial operations date. The reason that that's significant for the city is that until that commercial operations date occurs, the term of the contract does not technically start. So your 30-year term of the contract technically has not started yet. The option to purchase at certain times in the future has not started to occur yet. And so we believe that there was, clearly the system is ready. That should have been done. We think that they need to get that accomplished. The other situation that we have alleged as a default is that based upon the last year's worth of production, they have been about 37% short of the estimated annual production. And so we think that that is a significant enough variance to constitute an event of default. Remember, the contract says that the annual production amount is an estimate. There is no guarantee, there is no representation or warranty, but missing by 37% appears to be sufficient to be enough of an event of default. If it were a smaller percentage, we might be telling you, yes, they're not doing it where you'd want it to be, but with this number, it may not go forward. So if you're ready to authorize that, we can send that notice out as early as tomorrow and start the process.
Everybody get a chance to read it?
Yep.
Does everybody understand it? Have any questions about it?
I think we'll get into all the details of everything else later, right?
I would suggest that that's where you want to be. when you get a little bit closer to that period. You know, Chris and I had a little bit of discussion about this. You know, again, there is the opportunity to go into a closed session to talk about matters with counsel when litigation is imminent or actually in process. At this point in time, I'm hard pressed to tell you that the litigation is imminent. There are lots of incentives for them to fix this problem within the 30-day period. And if they do that, then we're not going to move forward. If we get closer to that point, then we can, at a regularly scheduled meeting, we could go into closed session to discuss it, because the discussion of some of those options and what you may want to do could be disadvantageous to you to do it in an open forum.
We can't do that without doing this.
Correct.
Let's, just for public understanding here, make something clear. The default right now that we're experiencing, the major issue of default is the fact that the timeline for which we could exercise our ability, for instance, to buy it in 10 years, that timeline hasn't started yet. Other than that, people have to understand that we are not losing money because of this.
Right.
We are actually getting free electricity because of it. And the reason for that is what power they produce, because they haven't entered into this contractual arrangement. What energy they produce, and they're producing a lot, is coming to us without any attachment. So in fact, depending on how you want to do the analysis, we have received we received gross revenues of about $100,000. I shouldn't say gross revenues. We received gross savings of about $100,000 so far in the past year. Now, it's not like we're out here to say we want to kill the golden goose. The real issue here is looking forward. It's not just the issue related to what our timing is, but it's also an issue related to what is their intent as far as providing the power that we expect on the agreement that we've established. And right now, it's all been in advance. It's been a year.
So that's $100,000 revenue that we're getting free?
It's painted pretty picture. It's a
It's
pretty
not
picture that's
revenue.
being painted a little bit, because we just had this discussion earlier. There's other numbers involved. It's not quite that good.
I said gross revenues, I did not say net. Because there's a way that you can interpret this and say that the net revenues is 65. And how we make that assessment is hard to, it takes a lot of discussion. But the point that I'm making here is that we are not losing money because of this. That's the real point. But there is unassuredness because we haven't seen anything as far as pro action on their behalf to complete what they indicated they would do.
Chris, you had made the comment that it's produced enough electricity, if I recall, for around 150 homes or something.
Yeah, so it's about it's been about 170,000 kilowatt hours, and we figure about 12,000 kilowatt hours on an average home per year. So
I think you said around. Yeah. So if it produces 37% more, then you're over 200.
So having said all that, I think this is appropriate, what we're talking about tonight, right?
So why would you want to rock the boat and not keep getting free electricity?
Because eventually we'll have 30 years on it and still not be able to buy it. We'll have,
You're assuming you want to buy it.
well,
30 years from now, you'll get free electricity.
Well, no, remember, your contract requires you to have a term of at least, I believe it's either 20 or 25 years. And so if that doesn't start for another 10 years, then, you're gonna have to go out that period of time. So
We do not have a complete contract with that.
I just wanted to ask the obvious question.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion that we move forward with sending the letter. Is that, were you looking for a motion for that? Yeah. Okay. For a second?
Second.
Thank you, John.
Earl,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Consider approval of Class C beer permit renewal for Dollar General Store, 2378.
To approve.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Discuss snow removal at the Mutual Center. And the next item is the fire station. We can probably cover them both at the same time. And it's in regards to the next item on the agenda. Because over the weekend, when it was snowing, I got a call from the fire chief about, 9 o'clock in the morning that the fire station hadn't been bladed yet. So I called Mark Wagler and asked him when the fire station was to be bladed. He said usually right before or after the airport, which is normally the last thing they blade. So I said, well, with the amount of snow we got, since the fire department's usually supposed to be the first ones kind of out on the scene to secure the scene before EMS gets there, I asked him to go blade it. I called Danny. I talked to Danny about it. Didn't see an issue with it. We discussed that we probably needed to move it up on the priority list of being bladed. And at the time I was talking to Mark, it come up that they weren't to blade the Mutual Center.
Is that true?
So I brought that up and they said they had direction to not blade the Mutual Center because we don't get paid for it.
Danny, is that true?
We discussed it, we talked about the payment, we didn't say no to it, I mean, it's just a thing that they, again, like Mark saying, it, the fire station's after the airport, sometimes when we do the airport, till a couple days later, so I don't know where that comes from either, because, the direction is given as emergency routes to me are considered, hospital and fire station, so that's should be the first step done, so, I don't know, again, maybe that's just a management issue and talking directly to personnel.
There was a complaint filed by an employee with the attorneys about my decisions to have the Mutual Center and the fire department bladed. So I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. Like, Danny was in a tumble, he wasn't here, he didn't know the situation, and I couldn't get call Gary, his work cell phone, and he doesn't answer it, so, I made the decision to have them bladed.
I use my personal phone.
We've had a phone for you ever since you got here.
And I've always said that you use my personal phone.
You've never given me that number.
Okay, I'll give it to you. I always use my personal phone.
So I just wanted to bring it aware to everybody why that's on there. I made the decision to do it, whether it was my responsibility or duties or not. If it wasn't, I'm sorry. But the fire station needed bladed. The Mutual Center doesn't need to be, it can be last. But we've bladed it for years. I think we need to, we can't just quit blading it when it snows.
Right.
If we want to quit, let's wait till it's dry.
I really think what Danny has just said is what's happened here. And that is that an employee made a decision that was not related to directions.
Well, I'm just telling you what I got, what he can say, what he has to say, that's fine. But I made the decisions.
Is there a priority list, though?
They would have emergency route map, I don't have it, I mean,
I mean, like this weekend, it's gonna snow.
Right.
What's the priority list?
priorities, emergency routes, and then work way out, and then, the square. and-
What's the emergency
Emergency
routes?
routes include fire station,
Yeah,
first thing.
yeah, between fire station, the hospital, Madison,
Does that
big
include-
arterials getting to
That
the,
includes the fire station itself, not just the street to the fire station?
I mean, it should be,
Yeah.
So I know for,
Includes it or should be.
You know,
going back to when I was on the fire department, we had issues with getting, like, I used to bring my own skid loader in and do the fire station.
It should be done. It will be clarified. There's no question about it. I still think that what's happened here is that somebody else was making a decision that was not related to what the direction.
I disagree with that, but that's fine. I just put this on there to discuss why I did what I did, to make everybody clear why I did it. I guess the next item on there, I have no problem discussing all that stuff. I'd like to sit down and discuss it, but I don't really know that we need to do it in a meeting.
Okay. Let's do that.
I mean, I'm willing to do that. I'd like to really have Earl and John involved.
That's fine. Let's do that.
Danny, yourself, Chris, and myself, I have no problem doing that. I just don't think we need to do it here.
That's fine.
If everybody agrees with that, let's get. Claims, approved claims as presented. Move to approve.
Second.
Scott? Yes. John?
Yes.
Earl?
Yes.
Darren?
Yes.
Jack?
Yeah.
Jeff's not here anymore. I guess I'm voting.
Okay.
Here you go.
You get it for it. Wait a minute, I'm not.
Budget workshop to discuss and give tentative budget approval for all items, operations, issues. Accounting,
Ryan, did we need to sign his paper? I guess not.
No,
Okay.
but he wants to know if his wife can go
Well, I think we're strictly to
everything we got left,
budget related.
Yes, sir.
I'm excused.
you can be excused if you want to.
Thanks, Galen.
Unless you want to jump ahead and do the report, so we really truly are done with everything. That's up to you guys. You want to do your reports quick? Does anybody, do you have any reports to make?
Not anything to do.
No. Chief, do you have any?
No, I just want to let everybody know that I've got some invoices regarding air packs and stuff, and with the government shutdown, I can't get to my money. So
Okay.
I guess what I'm going to give you a heads up is I'm going to go ahead and submit the invoice and just keep an eye on your checking account, see if it shows up. Right now, there's nobody in Washington DC to take my request for payments. The other thing was Saturday night, the guys were still removing snow. We had our fire department Christmas party. I went ahead and invited them to come and eat with us, so they came down and ate a hot meal on us, and so I was very appreciative of taking care of the snow and everything else, and it was just a way to say thank you. We had food, plenty of food there, nobody left hungry. Other than that, everything's going good. The air packs are there, the radios will be in any day now. Working on budget stuff, trying to get that wrapped up, along with everything else. So hopefully it'll be a nice weekend, minus the ice and the cold weather. But that's all I have.
All right, thanks. Chief, do you have anything?
I don't have anything to do.
Dan, I do. Met with the EV committee of Main Street on Monday, and we have received a formal application for request of a tax rebate through tax increment financing in my office, and I took it to the EV committee because they're going to help us in the promotion of the development of the Main Street district. We're using that application as somewhat of a template for which we could develop policy for giving tax abatements through TIF. And we recognize that there's value and quality from one application to another, and that we are trying to determine criteria for which we could give more versus less, and encourage, certain kinds of development in a more positive way. A lot of this is really all it is. This is about rebate. It assumes that whoever is coming in is going to make some improvements to their property that do not necessarily translate into significant increases in property value as far as the assessor is concerned. And Lois was there, and we talked about that. And then this particular application, it was indicated that they made somewhere around $120,000 to $160,000 of improvements. And a general assumption made by the property owner is okay, you add that onto what, if you say that's what my increment is. And Lois clearly said that's not going to be the case. Now, in this particular property, we're going to see that the new valuation will be posted on Beacon probably in April, and that the timing of this is really based upon what we know the assessed valuation is going to be, and that when we make this rebate, given the cycle of how you do property taxation, that a reimbursement of an abatement would not occur until the fall of 2020. So we have time to make this policy. I've talked about this a little bit in the past, but now that Main Street is very active in trying to work hand in glove with the city on this promotion, what's going to happen is that this subcommittee will be making a recommendation to the council as to what this policy should be. I think it's an important opportunity for us to clearly articulate our incentivizations that we want to do for retail development. This is different. This is an abatement plan. This is not, if somebody came in and said, we're going to do new construction or we're going to do major reconstruction, we would look at that completely different. What we're talking about is business startups. There is still an issue about what would be a bottom line or minimum that we could provide. I know that the mayor and Chris and Tammy Roberts was up in Jefferson talking about that also. And there may very well be other incentivizations that we could look at that's not necessarily TIF related, but could be. But we're looking at the classic rebate plan that right now a lot of people are participating in. We're trying to figure out how do you distinguish one from another. So I would say that probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks, a recommendation would come forward from our subcommittee. Other than that, we do have a snowstorm coming. In looking at the weather reports just before I came here, we're looking at 5 to 6 inches probably. But this snowstorm is going to be a lot different than the other two that we've had. We're going to have high winds and drifting, and we're going to have real cold weather when this front comes through. This may be the more difficult snow that we've had compared to the other two that we've had major dumps. This one is not perhaps going to have quite as much snow, but it's going to be a lot harder to manage and remove.
Scott's showing that Tuesday, they're calling for 5 to 8.
Yeah.
It's gonna be cold after 5 to 8 more inches of snow. though.
We're looking at 5 to 6 starting tomorrow night into Saturday. So
Come back to the old one.
I'm ready to go.
but at any rate, there's going to have to be some decisions made here in the next 12 to 24 hours how we handle this. That's all I have.
You covered. Okay, I got calls, whatever. You don't have anything, Chris?
I just wanted, you didn't talk about Jefferson, no?
No.
Okay.
I can.
I was just gonna say that, yeah, as Gary mentioned, Tammy, Roberts and Dan, and I went up to Jefferson, Iowa to see how what they're doing for buildings on the square. I think it was a real useful meeting. They've two things, they've got a good, they've been working on housing a little longer than we have in terms of their ordinances and inspections, and then they've also been making some investments on buildings on the square. So we'll have more to talk about that. On the way back Tuesday, I had the opportunity, because of the involvement with Empower Rural Iowa, to attend the governor's condition of the state address. And I also stopped by and visited with folks at IEDA. There was strong conversation about housing in both at IEDA and the governor mentioned it quite a bit throughout her speech. So I just want to say that housing is going to be a focus at the state level for a while. And I think what we're talking about is right in line with what they would like to see done. So that's all.
The only other thing to add to Chris in Jefferson, they've got a guy that he's got a different way of title, but he basically does what Chris does, but he is also an inspector. So he does their housing inspections.
So Chris is wanting to go to school to be a housing inspector?
I didn't say that, I just said they got a guy. They got a guy.
Chris has told me about a guy that's around here that can do that.
That's the other thing. We will be bringing at least one guy that provides this as a private service to other communities. We'll have him in here in the next couple of weeks.
Danny, you got anything?
Sure. Just a busy week this week. Of course, we started out with snow last Friday and kind of went into the weekend, which we're ready to, I think, repeat again. With that in mind, we had a lot of breakdowns this week. I mean, this weekend we're doing snow removal. Went down to there for a minute, down to one truck out of 3 plowing snow, and we was able to get some help from Snowman there to get one of the trucks back up. They're all back up now. We have one that's really kind of just parted right now, waiting for parts to come in tomorrow. Hopefully to get that back, at 100%. So cross our fingers for this weekend. So we also had IUV electric inspection come down. They inspected, went through basically our books on our electric distribution side, and they ran our lines and looked at stuff. So they do that's an annual inspection. We'll get a report here in a couple weeks on that brief up. Also, we had our dielectrics and truck inspections for electric distributions. They're down here and did all those on Tuesday. We did our public works team hearing test. So basically everybody had the hearing test back into our annual OSHA requirements and getting that established. So everybody did a baseline test this year, and we'll go into that for hearing tests annually. Also had, we did hire a mechanic. I mean, Adam did accept the position as a mechanic, and he'll start that position on the 28th. Mechanic, there'll still be some shared responsibility between gas and stuff until we get stuff done. He will keep his on-call gas certification to help out with the city there. Along with that, I had the hoist inspected because, again, just another one of those things that's never been inspected since it was installed 19 years ago. And it's actually a failed inspection, so that hoist is it's out of commission now, it's not in service, it's tagged out, and so it's unsafe. So basically, we need to look at some stuff there, some options. Basically, the cost of repair is going to exceed the cost of buying a new one anyway. So, talked about, we did receive our signed culvert contract, the original culvert that's signed, and we're ready to begin work in the spring. Survey work was done last couple of days out at the wastewater treatment plant to start doing some laying stuff there. We're within 30 days, probably bid letting for the CBG grant, so that should hopefully come out by the end of February, 1st of March. We should be letting bids and getting those out. Working on there. We've been doing mapping, of course, with our feeder system, about 12% done on all of our lines with the feeders. So we're on trying to get that done here and work with Iowa State University and trying to get that going. We did make a first round. We applied for a grant with Iowa State University to do mapping of our feeders with the drone. And I know we made it through the first round, so now it's actually going to be the students grad students will go through and assign priority of who gets to go win. So it looks like we're going to have some help there doing that.
Is that a free service?
That's free, yep. So that'll be done. So that'll actually go along with our mapping we've done. Now we've kind of then revamp some of that stuff. So it's going to help out with that too. So, but that's a pretty big, busy week. We went into my team come to work Wednesday, already working about 40 hours in the week already. So it looks like we're going to repeat that. Rinse and repeat again this morning. So, we don't want to repeat truck breakdowns. We're going to repeat them.
That's hard key.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Taylor, do you got anything?
I do. Now that being back on maternity leave, back in the fall, we did have well, it was actually summer. We had a company come in, video company, do a pool study. So now we have you don't have to read through it right now, obviously. We had a company come in and put everything basically all together in one spot, so we know everything about the pool, about what's going on. Before they came in, we discussed with the Parks and Rec, with Jill, kind of an option, what we kind of wanted to do with the kiddie pool area. And they've given us 3 options. We don't have to go with those, obviously. If anybody else has any more ideas for that, we're up for them. But it goes over everything from the slide, plunge pool. The concrete work, when I was on maternity leave, was supposed to get done, was my understanding, in the fall. We have it in the budget, $23,350 for Sean Kramer to come in, and I was informed that did not happen.
It was rescheduled for the spring.
It has now been rescheduled for the spring, but
And
the reason it didn't happen was not because we didn't have time, it was because we was told it wasn't properly done and we couldn't do it.
that's right, the bidding was, it needed to go out for formal bid.
It did go out for formal bid, they got 3 bids.
No, they got 3 quotes.
Oh, what's the definition of the difference?
We have to actually publish. The formal bid process, just like Darren's,
That's not the reason I was told it wasn't done.
well, that's what we said last fall.
I just know come spring, there's a lot of stuff that needs to get done from the pool, and I'm hoping we can get it done in time.
Better get it out for bids
You gotta get it out for bid, yeah.
right away if you want it done in the spring.
So it has all the other deficiencies in there, within the shower house. You guys can look it over. There's obviously things that need to be done. And I see in the agenda for the city engineer, if we want to go about any of these things in the very back page, summary of engineers' options.
Mayor, can I suggest that we actually make this an agenda item so that,
I have a question while we're on this, the subject of bidding. Is there a threshold that we don't have to bid at?
Yep.
What is that? For the county, it's like $90,000, give or take. $85,000, $90,000 the county.
for us, is it 20 or 25? You gotta look it up.
I think it's 25, because everything over 25 has to be.
In which
It
case
depends on the
you wouldn't
size.
have to put
It
it out.
depends on your population.
You could take quotes if it was under the threshold.
Yeah, we can put this on the agenda and bring it back.
Yeah, I think it's worthy of a
If
full
it needs
discussion.
some discussion. We'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
2 minutes. We'll figure it out.
We'll put it on the agenda.
I wasn't, making decisions now, I just wanted to give it to you guys, and so now that I'm back, that you guys can sit down and read it wherever you want to.
So we'll let you summarize.
Anything else other than you need some help to fix a few things down there?
Well, there is a dumpster down at the rec center right now. Do we use it,
Move it over.
get it back, take it away?
I think you ought to use it.
Use it. I think it was brought down there for the purpose for you to use, so Robbie don't have to haul trash.
So the convenience of me loading it up in my vehicle out to the end of the parking lot?
Move down, take it from there down to you guys. Is there a place for one?
Right by the building is what you're asking?
What I'm wondering is, couldn't we take one from the pool down there and stick it somewhere? Is there a place?
There's not
convenient?
one at the pool.
Well, I thought you said there was.
We have,
Did they move one down there
Oh,
already?
okay.
we have an extra one.
Yeah, there's one at the end of our parking lot.
By that building?
By the shed.
We brought the extra one down.
By the building?
Supposedly, my understanding is it can't be down by the building because with the big trucks coming in on the asphalt, it's gonna ruin the parking lot, is what I've heard.
That makes sense, because they probably won't stand up to punishment of the accident. Oh, you've got a question, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Restate your question.
So if there's trash, you're wanting me to load it up, walk it out to the end of the parking lot?
We can get you a cart.
Shouldn't have
Well, you should have a cart anyway, because you're pounding in the back storage room, it really should be in a containment of some sort. So you get one of those, like a garbage cart.
Big
Yeah,
Rubbermaid.
big Rubbermaid garbage cart, and then the kids that work on weekend can take it over and dump it.
Yeah, we don't want you to do it.
Yeah.
You got somebody else that can get to do it, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robbie.
Well, Mayor, it wasn't uncommon. I was a long time employee down there for many years at nights. We would take them by hand when they'd go weeks and months on end when not getting garbage. And we would take them out to the old water plant, put them in the dumpsters out there, we would have to drive them all the way out there. That wasn't uncommon. We'd go 5, 6, 7 weeks and not get garbage picked up. That back room would have 30 bags back there.
I don't think that's probably a good practice.
No, I'm saying, but that's what it was, past years since that changed. That wasn't uncommon to get rid of your own.
Maybe that's why that paint's peeling off the wall.
And John, did you have something for the council update?
I do. I just wanted to state that I've had questions that I get mad last council meeting and leave, and no, that wasn't the case. I had a family emergency, so that was the issue why I abruptly left. And then the other thing was, as a council, we're gonna be discussing incentives for housing. And so I want to declare that it is my intention, my wife and I plan to build a new house in the city of Bloomfield. And so I'd like to participate in the discussion, but if it's appropriate, I'll abstain from voting on any of that. So.
All right, thanks. Anybody else have anything council-wise?
Oh. 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I think it'd be appropriate to start through the end of February, to start the meetings at 6 o'clock. Does that work for everybody? I mean, might help them get over a little bit.
And do we have a meeting every Thursday?
We have a meeting every Thursday, right now planned clear through the 14th of March. But the March 7th meeting and the March 14th meeting are probably not gonna be big meetings, so we figured we could probably go back to 7 o'clock on them, but the rest of them are gonna have a lot of information.
28th is a maybe, but
We might get a skip a week in there somewhere, but right now tentatively scheduled clear through March 14th. Other than that, we did go to Jefferson, it was worth the trip. I got a nice little town there, pretty proactive. Other than that, I don't have any more comments, we make it last any longer, so. But is there any public comments? All right, let's go back to operation issues number 1.
okay. Just to let you know, as far as operation issues concerned, we've already discussed a lot of these, so understand that this list is gonna get real short. The first item that's on here is also reflected in the 2020 project proposals. It's the accounting software. We have significant concerns about the existing software that we have, and it is we do not have a recommendation as to whether in fact we ought to change it out or not, and we are not looking to change it out in fiscal 20. But we would like to have about $5,000 that we just put in a line item to do research to see if in fact we could change, if in fact it's viable to change out the software. One of the things that Brenda and I have talked about is that even if we wanted to change out the software, we got to use the existing stuff to get our accounts squared away. And without getting our accounts squared away, the transfer of this information is going to be problematic anyway. The problem with that though is that the system that we have now is cumbersome and it's very difficult to manipulate. So we either have to get really good at manipulating this system or look at other systems that are easier to manage and are more directly related to what we need to have done as far as the city is concerned.
Jack, you want something? You need a refill.
Get yourself a picture.
Maybe we just need to have Robbie bring some water down here.
All right, so in that regard, is there any comments about this? This is a $5,000 item, but to be honest with you, this is significant for the operation of our house.
Well, it's a $50,000 or $100,000 expenditure if we change, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, maybe,
I think it's
maybe
probably,
more.
but I think it's probably worth $5,000 to make sure we get the right one.
Oh, yeah. And I think a year ago, we said, come back and bring us a suggestion, so.
Well, and to be honest with you, the more that Brenda's gotten into this, the more we've realized not only is the system a mess from the standpoint of how we've never really manipulated it, the accounting structure that we have right now is just.
I just like to be able to understand it better.
And so would we.
I mean, I'm just saying.
I said that back in the 90s.
I gotta tell you that the Summit computer system is used by a majority of cities in the state, but there are many cities that don't use it. And the conversion to Summit versus the conversion away from Summit, there's more going away from it. They keep talking about how they are going to have a new rollout of a more modernized system, but they've been saying that for 3 or 4 years.
They told us in the fall, this spring, I think they hope to have something.
And we've heard this story before.
But we're plugging away and we're staying in close contact. They said if you have issues and questions that come up, call them, and if they don't respond promptly, to keep after them, which is what we have, all of us
Yeah.
on the work team have been.
What is the
diligently.
expense, what is the expense exactly in investigating different software?
Well, we might have presentations, we might have to travel to see if, to test these things or understand them. I mean, it's a general cost, it's a plug number, but it's an understanding that we have to make a commitment to at least investigate this. And there's some cost for demonstrations here too, if we want to look at others. But right now, it is as much as anything is, we might look at this as a line item where it's personnel related to.
So you want 5,000 for item A or 1?
Yeah, you see it down in the 2020 project proposals. Do you have the old list from last week? Okay, well, the list from last week shows $5,000. That's what we're saying.
I can write it down. I was just
Okay.
city engineer.
The permanent position for limited time employee accounting coordinator, we talked about that last week. That's Brenda. We want to bring that on. At really about a push as far as the cost is concerned, bring that on as an actual full-time employee, long-term, not, or I should say not limited time, but fully committed. The next item is budgeting for a city engineer. We know that we have direction to effectively hire HR Green. Now, the question here is do you want them to be in here, not just on a project basis, but also to assist us in things like GIS where it would be more of a T&M basis on short bursts of assignments. And if that be the case, then we ought to have money set aside for that function as opposed to just hiring them to, and we'd actually probably do that separately anyway, but hiring them to do the design work for the 2020 street project, for instance. We think that there's a lot of work that HR Green can present or provide for us that might be in planning, might be, like I said, in GIS, things of that sort. I don't have a number set up for that right now because we still need to talk with them and visit their offices in Cedar Rapids. That's something we haven't set up yet. But do you think the idea of doing this is a good thing? I mean, I would anticipate somewhere around $25,000.
And that's just for random engineering.
Yep.
So how do we do it last year?
We have never done.
The other engineering costs will be, that they would be figured into the projects.
Right.
This is just,
This will be
I think
kind
it's
of,
a good way to track it. I
Yeah.
don't think it's a bad idea.
yeah, I think that what we're talking about is something like a legal services thing.
Sure. Sure, I think it's a good idea.
Okay. The next one we talked about before, contracting for seasonal hiring for mowing. What do you think? We've talked about it already.
we've done that in the past, haven't we, Earl, John?
Just
Cemeteries,
cemeteries,
was
the
it,
only thing I remember.
But that sure worked good.
did it?
Yeah, it has.
I mean, the Iowa cemetery always looked really nice.
Save us
And-
money?
And yeah,
Yep.
if I remember correctly, it's cheaper than our own crew going out and doing it and, cause usually they went in force.
Well, and what happened is we also used, public, folks that, from Law Center that needed to donate some time. But then, and Lucy was doing it, but you would get times where you had a lot of rain or something, and they didn't have any help, and the weeds come up and the stones didn't get weeded, and I mean, it always looked real nice.
Do you have any idea, dollar amount wise, what it would cost?
We haven't worked that out, but here's the thing. We look at this thing as much as anything as a way to add to our public works staff without hiring full-time, long-term people. As an example, and I think many of you recognize this, our guys in the sewage treatment plant mow a lot of their ground. There's a lot of time there, and realistically, that's not their main focus or function.
There's where you need the sheep and goats.
We could probably save about $300,000 worth of mowers.
Yeah, that's another issue for, we are having some more issues. That's gonna be, I mean, once Adam's on board, that's the first thing, one of the first things on the agenda is to assess and inventory all the mowers. So we do have a ton of, we only have like 2 new mowers and the rest are, old in age on them. So that's another thing, looking at that. But I just know another thing too, is we just can't continue to time and a half mowing at $30 an hour. That's a very expensive mower.
It's crazy.
So, I mean, I know our parks are great and it is, they do a fine job, but I think the city needs to know what that costs to do that.
You don't have any ballpark rough ideas,
No, I would just, if anything, compare,
$75,000, $50,000,
I would
$100,000?
probably compare it to cams. What are we paying with cams right now? I just saw it on the claims today, $3,100 for a quarter, or how often we pay cams
We pay him monthly.
monthly, so.
35,000 is what does that sound right?
That sounds about
So
right.
that'd be pretty close to that. I would say pretty close to that, depending on what we decide.
But I mean, you're talking the parks in town, the ball fields, Lake Fisher.
Yeah, depending on how big you wanna go or how far. Some of the ball fields, I know that Ted does mow, and we actually need to, part of the thing we need to fix there too, is if he's gonna do that with our city equipment, we need to have a
So we
volunteer
give him a
application.
mower and the gas and he just operates it.
Right, but we need to have a volunteer application on file to cover us for workman's comp, so that's another thing we have to fix, so there's things liability wise we have to fix, so. But yeah, so just depending on what we wanna do, how big you wanna go, we can quote out chunks and.
I mean, I think probably what we do is when we come back with public works budgets here that would come toward the end of this month, we could start talking about an actual contract and get estimates of what that would be, so that in fact we could put that in the budget, if that's what you wanna do. We just,
We want to go out for bid, but I'm just
Right.
looking for some kind of number to plug in, because we're not gonna get a bid back by that time.
I would, like I say, if we just budget 35,000, we just know, because like, we may not want a contract.
25?
Huh?
45,000?
35. I would just, that's, and I would just say like, we could pick things like, we may not want to subcontract the sewer area, because that is some high risk, we have special machinery to mow some of that, so that might be one of our, who does it, we could decide who does that ends up, but the parks or something else is, we could do different. So yeah, we could, if we just have a dollar figure, we just know we'll just get the biggest bang for our buck, I guess, whatever works. And we are gonna do that farm waste on part of the lake, so some of that won't get mowed with us too.
And you might section it off what you want mowed
Right.
and make it to where you can bid it individual pieces or a lump sum.
Right.
We just wanna know, right now, we just wanna know if
There's an end.
if we
Put
wanna get in that direction.
35,000 in it, I guess, and we'll,
Yeah,
All
we're
right,
willing to
we
look
gotta
at it.
start somewhere.
okay, all right,
If we get bids and it's 100,000, we'll have to revisit it.
Yeah.
okay.
If
The
it's
next-
high, I might-
The next item on here is creating the 10-month LTE for community development. We talked about that with Gage. We talked about that. We talked about all the business about mutual center, parks and recreation budgeting. The last on these, without knowing whether you have anything else you want to put into this discussion, the last operational issue is a 2% increase for non-union, non-police employees. That's the standard. We have the pay plan already established. There's no conversion here. It's just adding 2% into the pay plan. The ASME contract is already 2%. We already have that commitment, so there's no discussion there.
Is that 2% from the union, is that the basis for the 2% for? Yeah.
That's been the practice here is that what the union gets, everybody else gets. And that 2% is reflective, actually, right now, less than cost of living.
Can I say something on that one? If I get the 2% increase, it's still not more than what Robbie is making right now. Just to put it out there. Robbie's making more than me right now, and even with that 2% increase, he will still make more than me.
I think what she's saying is his director, he makes more than she gets. I didn't look. Isn't on the pay plan under Parks and Rec Director? Doesn't she get a pay increase plus, doesn't she move up a step in the pay plan?
She's topped out.
I didn't see it. I looked at it the other night, but it looked to me like she had a couple steps. unless I-
Let me take a look real quick. I'll let you
I'm
know.
just asking.
I'll take a quick look here. Now, the Park and Rec Director, if you gave the 2%, would be topped out at 42,313 this year. And she's at top of scale.
Of course, part of that was based on information from the county and what they were willing to put in too.
Well,
We actually, when we did this pay plan, we actually raised it a little bit. I don't think Taylor's right. Robbie makes more in base. It's not much more.
Wouldn't that have to go through the municipal board?
They agreed to. The adjustment that was made here was probably less than $1,000.
No, I mean to go above
Oh,
2%.
You're asking
I know where you're going.
In the 28E agreement, it does have set amount what the rec center and the county are supposed to provide to
Yeah,
the city.
so they would have to.
We'd have to rewrite that.
I'm just saying, I think they would have to agree to the raise in order for
Right.
their portion to raise.
The first question is, I mean, we can address Taylor's situation directly individually, but the larger question here is you want to do 2% of the pay plan. If you, in Taylor's case,
I mean, I don't
if the
know.
Taylor, if the 2% doesn't work for Taylor, then she falls farther behind Rowdy.
I'm just saying, yeah, I mean. But yeah, just the 2% is basically the pay plan. If we want to address her situation separately, we can address it separately, but she's still gonna get 2%.
If you direct sell.
Cause she's, I mean, I guess it's directly, I don't know. What do you wanna, what's that?
You know,
I'd like to have time to discuss the whole pay plan. I'd take 4 hours to discuss it all by itself, cause I don't really like it, but I'm not gonna, or waste that time now. So, I mean, I think that's another I mean, I think that's for more discussion. I'm okay with it for this year to leave it like it is.
As in, with or without the 2%? With the 2%.
Okay.
We can't. I guess you can do the non-union without counting, but you can't. No, I'd just leave it alone.
Okay,
I'm
so,
tired of beating that 2% area.
okay, so we have this group of issues and we've discussed it either last week or this week.
Are you down to FY 2020?
FY 2020.
I'm not. We don't have quite as much information, I don't think, as you do, because you brought up a couple items that we haven't had.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to the Mutual Center just for a second.
Okay.
I did get a call during the meeting from Ron Bride. They did their budget work today.
Yeah.
At the Mutual Center board meeting the other night.
Yeah.
He mentioned the county and the city coming up with a dollar amount that each of them could possibly afford to help, to basically give the Mutual Center to kind of help keep their account up. They was gonna try to come up with a number today, and I think he was gonna probably and I asked him what it might be, and I think he's gonna give me that information, so.
Okay.
They're looking towards, the number they talked about the other night was possibly 7,500 from the county, 7,500 from the city.
See, we can take that out.
To hand over, just to help keep their balance has been.
You're talking about a continuing operational cost. Though.
Just for operation costs.
Yeah.
Maintenance, because we know that if it's 20 years old, we know furnaces and airs are gonna start going down before long. And
They got $35,000 in the kitty.
no, they got more than that.
80?
They got, and then just, and a CD.
Oh, they got a CD also. Okay.
79 something.
But I'm just saying that,
Tick, tick, tick.
so we'll have to bring that back up.
Right, and we would do that in the context of the actual budget.
So for the
itself.
Mutual Center Parks and Rec, I mean, if there was a number you just want, to put in there tonight, I'd like to add that.
We'll add this, okay, all right,
I'd like to add 7,500,
okay.
for that. We can change it, move it, but I'm just, if everybody thinks that's a good idea.
When we present that budget to you all, later on, then we'll incorporate that 75. But going back to these things, these operational issues, I'll just ask for you to approve a tentative, give tentative approval so that we formally will put this stuff into the budget.
Okay, do we have a yay vote for 5,000 for accounting?
Yes.
Yeah.
25,000 for city engineer?
Yeah.
Yes.
35,000 for mowing?
Look at it.
What we'll bring it back to you for more discussion.
I mean, we're just doing,
Yeah.
7,500 mutual center Parks Rec
Yes,
and 2% increase for non-union, non-police employees.
yes.
And what we presented to you last week about the Brenda's job and David's job.
Right.
That's not on our sheet.
Was from it was in last week's, but
Did we kind of approve that, didn't we,
I thought we
last
did.
week?
But we didn't have a tentative approval.
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't on the agenda last week either.
but tentatively,
Well, would that not be in the non-union pay plan?
guess they would be.
Well, we put in the non-union pay plan Brenda's position, but it still has to be determined whether it's union or not. But what we're saying is that approximately that number.
Right.
If it were if it were in the non-union pay plan, then that's what it would be, but it's gonna have to be negotiated potentially.
Plug them in.
We're just looking at getting a go-ahead here.
Yes.
All right.
Fiscal year 2020 project proposals.
Gotta have a vote.
We did, we went through them all and did yays.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We all
went through
agree.
everyone individually.
Okay,
and did
all
them
right, so, all right, there was no.
Okay.
We just did a reckless tentative yay.
Never mind. All right, FY 2020 project proposals. We already talked about the accounting software. Ash tree removals, 46 trees. Chris has got an inventory. We need to remove these ash trees from public property. They're a hazard. We have a plug number of 50,000, which we think is a pretty solid number.
So just so you know, this is anything in right of ways, we're liable, and public property, the parks.
50,000 for 46 trees?
That was the estimate that came from, when they did a DNR guy came down, did an inventory of the trees, plugged in the number of, this is his number, so we're just using that for the estimate. I'm not saying he's from Des Moines, could be different.
Okay.
I'm just saying that's the number that we actually.
Or $1,000.
Something like
Yes.
Be careful what you say.
We're saying 46 trees.
Twice what this guy did for.
We've talked about the basketball court. That's the next one. We just put a plug number of 50,000. We don't know whether it's too high or too low, but I have a feeling it's gonna be pretty costly.
So you've already got money.
And Scott's right. We got about $25,000 that was allocated from the holdovers that we had for park and rec functions like ball fields or whatever. We would move that money into this project account as part of the cost there.
And I think Corey Zamolik, which is on the Parks and Rec Board, has got some numbers on fencing, basketballs, hoops, and another thing they talked about maybe in this same project was a sand volleyball. But possibly at Lake Fisher.
Okay.
Kind of put them all together under the.
So do you want to start talking about other improvements other than the basketball court as a package? We know that we have to do the basketball court.
Yeah. Now, we don't have to do the sand volleyball, but I mean, I'd like to maybe try to look into it a little bit and see if it's an option.
See if we can we'll cost it out, find out.
Was there any grants or anything?
There may be, I haven't dug in, I know, I'm sure that was on my list to do, but I haven't gotten it.
That's all right.
We can look at some grants though for lighting though, for sports lighting, we can try to look at that.
One very good possibility would be, in the fall, the Davis County Community Foundation usually has some money that this would be an appropriate use for.
Going back to the city engineer side, I know I was thinking back to you guys afterwards, but I guess what's your scope where you want to go? I mean, if you look at it, I measured it's about 105 by 98, so about 100 by 100 over there, that square, big enough for two high school courts, if you want to do two high school courts.
High school courts are 80 by 50, 84 by 50.
Yeah. And a 3-inch perimeter, or a 3-foot perimeter usually. So, but you're looking at, if you go 4-inch concrete, you're looking at, $16,000 concrete, 125 yards of concrete. So it depends what you want to do and what kind of base, or what kind of
That's just the surface. I mean, you got
That's just the
fencing and
surface,
all the
so-
other stuff.
It's be 16,000 in concrete.
What did he say the fence? Basketball pools, I thought he said was like $1,300.
Yeah, he had it. He's got all the numbers somewhere.
Fencing was 7 or.
But-
11?
or 8,000.
And I reached out to print printers, see if they had any prints or anything that was on what we had, and they don't have anything on that stuff, so they said it must have been done without them or before they started. But again, but engineers do have, cookie cutter prints we can pull up, if that's something we wanna do too with that, to scope it out, but
So since we got 25, you're talking 60 for,
16. for
so we buy
concrete.
16?
Yeah, 16 for
I
concrete
thought
alone.
you said 60.
No, 16. 125 yards, about $130 a yard, depending on.
mix.
Just leave the 50 in there. Okay, that might be enough for a sand volleyball.
And we can play volleyball too. We just talked about at the rec meeting, they talked about some improvements.
There's room there.
I was thinking of sand volleyball more maybe out of Lake Fisher, because it usually attracts adults. That's the school's property. So you probably can't have you don't wanna have adult leagues on that property because there
We
might
had a
be.
sandbox just past the pool.
But where the basketball course is
Yeah.
school property.
Right.
If we put it in that area.
Yeah.
It'd just be better to be away.
Right, true.
Next item is compost site. This one is the one that probably scares me the most on this list, and the reason for it is we really don't know how much a capital improvement would be needed to move that stuff, the cost of moving that stuff, establish a new place, fencing it in. $50,000 maybe is the number, I don't know. But what scares me isn't that. Is this compost site, if we start doing it, implies that we're gonna have a different program, and this program development, now we're talking about operations costs.
Chris, do you remember when the school brought that presentation for that on, any idea how much money what it was gonna cost? Wasn't it 50, 60,000 right in there?
I think that's about right. Of course, that was a brand new site. It wasn't moving it was moving some stuff, but it
I
wasn't.
mean, I
moving
think we're
everything.
looking at a whole new site.
Yeah.
But the operational costs.
I don't know, I mean, if we go down this road, I think that we need to truly have an understanding about how we're gonna operate this thing. Compost sites that I know about, if for instance, you start creating mulch opportunities here for people to use, you can even have these people bring their stuff in. After a while, you grind them up, create the mulch, they come back and pick it up for free. It's a great community service thing, but it also requires personnel commitment to do that. Some of these programs is that you only open up the site on weekends. And you get a high school kid or somebody to be the person at the gate, the gatekeeper. Just to monitor what's going on. Others.
Still got city money, we still got people involved, you gotta roll it, you gotta turn it, you gotta chop the
I was just about to say that.
bush, I mean, there's a whole lot of.
I was just about to say that, because those other things become a public works function from the standpoint of existing staff. But we all know that what we have right now is probably sketchy as far as its legality is concerned. And the whole idea that this thing's always burning, is just not right.
I bet there's not very many legal compost sites in the state.
Well, probably in the rural areas, I agree with you, but these are very closely watched in urbanized areas.
Any idea, number wise, if you got 50,000 to build it, or is it gonna take 25 to operate it?
You're probably looking at a full-time person.
No. There's no way that I'd make that a full-time job. It's not that hard. Turning that stuff is,
No, they gotta drive the backhoe or skid loader or something out there and turn it and then drive it back, I mean, you're looking
half a day, once a week maybe.
I know,
That's a staffing commitment, I get that. And,
but we can't take 5 minutes to haul trash, so.
well,
We're gonna take a half a day.
That's why we-
it's not 5 minutes, let me tell you, it's not 5 minutes.
I'm just joking.
There's days when it's not funny for us, obviously. Okay, so you think, I mean, it's a plug number. Recognize that maybe throughout the year, we'll secure the site and move the stuff and still have to figure out a program. Maybe it's something that we evolve into an amended budget or something. They have to figure this out.
Well, I mean, also actually really involved in the compost side, if we move it to where we're thinking about moving, we're gonna have to do, which I'm sure the chief's gonna do it, but we're gonna have to come up with some budget money to help with the gun range. Well, I mean, I know they're different, but they work together here.
I got other on the list here too. So.
I know, before I forgot, I want to bring that.
All right, the next one, Courthouse Square buildings. This is community development, $350,000, but this is a TIF project.
What was that? The compost, so what number do you have for compost site?
50.
$350,000 for courthouse square buildings. Is that,
The one we own, the one that's next door, and
you're talking the combination on the corner? Depends on how it ends up and what all it is.
we have had discussions with Cat too. He's,
That's what I'm saying, so it could be, we're talking about the corner.
yeah, I feel real positive on our conversations with him. He wants to work with us. So realistically, we're talking 3 buildings potentially.
I mean, I guess that's a place to start.
That is a big TIF project.
Jefferson has they own 3 buildings, or they own a lot of buildings, but they've got 3 that they're in the process of fixing, and they've set aside $150,000 for each building. So we're not quite there, but close. But I mean, they're gutting them clear down, wiring them, making them ready to move in. Just a example.
There might be, Chris is, I don't know, there might be some grant money here, I don't know.
I think their buildings are narrower than ours though.
I think they were 22 feet. I'm not sure where ours are right now. There's probably 75 to 100,000 in grant potential here.
Okay. The next one is a derelict home purchase. We put 50,000 in there. That's for tear down?
That's legal and tear down.
Legal and tear down.
Figuring 5,000 legal, 5,000 tear down.
10
And we
houses.
hope we're high.
10 houses.
That's what 50 is. We don't know if it gets that far, but understand that we're not just talking about the hot 10 on the list. There's others out there. Particularly as it might relate to some trailers, which Jeff is very concerned about.
Who is?
Oh,
The fire chief.
oh, yes.
I'm not sure, they're not more expensive to get rid of.
Dude, you put them on wheels.
You gotta take them somewhere to get rid of them. You have a big spot out.
Darren makes a good point. You know what the cost is about? It's the asbestos.
Well, you gotta separate the 10 from
The old one,
the rest.
the newer ones, but old ones.
But anyway, it's
$3 million on the paper. I had one e-tor, I think, clear down to nothing.
Anyway, I would expect that this derelict home purchase thing is just a budget to get us started. It could be going on for more. I mean, I don't think this is a 1-year project, but let's not dip our toe in the water. Let's get our feet in the water here. It's a serious move. Then you got the housing incentive program. There's some TIF possible in that. We've been talking about that program. We haven't formally adopted it. But we're saying $150,000, which would suggest one way or the other, we're probably talking about 10 houses for development. 9 if we don't count jobs. The 150,000 is a huge move here.
Sends a message.
Mhm.
That's the whole reason.
The next one, I'm gonna let Chris talk about it even more, but it's inclusive financing and it would require a revenue bond to finance this thing. Chris?
So what we're talking about, this is what we've been talking about for the last few months, where we talked about, the differences between the energy efficiency levels of different homes. And talking about how can the city look at the city utilities, the electric and gas utilities, look at this investment as a way to curtail the future investment in generation and transmission line costs, right? So what we're talking about is, our best estimates are that we can spend on average about $10,000 a home. That the savings in the, it would be an upfront cost for us, that the savings in those homes would pay for, the energy cost savings would pay for the upgrades. The city would then, at the same time, see a reduction in our costs because of the way that our electricity is priced. We'd be bringing down our peak. This way it's worked in other places. I got 3 or 4 RECs that have done this kind of approach. To go at it hard, what we're targeting is trying to hit 200 homes a year. I think that's an incredibly aggressive and unlikely thing to happen in the first year, but you gotta set a target somewhere. And so, if we did $10,000 per home at 200 homes, you do the math, that's a $2 million ask that we would be making an investment in homes. And those investments repay back on the utility bill. We've got some things to work through here. The reality is that we probably wouldn't get, if we hit 50 homes in the first year, I'd be stunned. And it would be done probably on like I said, it would be tied to revenues of the electric and gas. So I know one of the risks is that we'd be reducing revenues, so how do you pay back, right? But we're reducing our costs at the same time. So I don't know what we plug in. What
So
we're really looking
kind of
at.
a double dip on the dollar figures then.
It is a double dip in the sense that.
But we plan to we would do this through an incentive bond, so how does that come back to us? We borrow that all at once, or is that a progressive thing?
So I think there's a way that we can do it, depending on the source of funds. There are several sources of funds where you would essentially establish a line of credit.
Okay.
And then as you did the projects, then you would dip into that line of credit. And you'd also, of course, as you finish projects, begin to see repayment.
Right.
So,
It's on bill financing, so.
Yeah.
As the payment, that money coming each month, you put it back in there, so.
I just, if we have an ambitious goal of 200 houses and we're saying 10,000, that's $2 million. We don't want to borrow $2 million and have it.
absolutely, we're not gonna go out and have it sitting in the bank waiting to use, right? It'd be on and obviously there's some structure and things we have to work out before then. Part of that is the RMI trip.
Well, I was gonna say, hopefully, they'll have some.
Right.
Models that we can look at that.
Do you think our loss of revenue is gonna be offset by the peak savings though? Or are we losing money in the?
I doubt all of it will be. No, I don't think
So
it
we've
can
done
be.
some initial number crunching. Let me give you some examples. If we take the worst of the worst homes
Yeah.
and we take a home that's 900 square feet that is spending right now $2,000 a year on electricity and gas, which is a big number for a house that size, right? In this case, we'll lose, our loss in revenues is gonna be greater than the peak savings that we would get in that situation. But I can also tell you that that same account is one that we really struggle to collect the revenues from, right? When we get down to homes that are at, say they're at the 60 or 70 mark, and you're bringing them down to 40 or 45, then the savings, the peak savings does offset the revenue losses. So there's two ways that we're looking at. One is that when you've got people, when you're just shifting a medium house down, we come out pretty good financially in terms of the energy save, the cost savings offsetting the revenue drop. When we're looking at a really bad home, you know, some of those might be our tear down possibilities, but they're also the ones that where we see problems even getting those.
That's part of the 85,000 we write off every year.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're gonna look at that on the
Sorry I put it that way, but that was easiest.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you clarified it. So, you know, I mean, we'll look at each one on a case-by-case basis, and I'm not saying that we want to make unwise investments. That's not the goal at all. But.
So if you take out, so if you got a house that's all electric heat, maybe you can just switch it over to a gas furnace and make it more efficient that way?
Well, if all you're doing is switching from electric to gas heat, your cost savings go down, or your cost savings increase because gas is a cheaper energy source than electricity. But it doesn't mean you've made the home any more efficient. You've made it cheaper, but not necessarily more efficient. I think we can do both.
That'd be like double dipping, wouldn't
But in a good way, right?
You know, I mean, also, so if you look at it from a strictly utility revenue point of view, it's gonna be about a break even, right? But if you also look at the improvements to
Someone's home and their
home
life.
and their quality of life, the quality of the air, the overall condition of homes in the city.
Disposable income.
Right.
Contribution.
Yeah, so if they're saving money, where's that money?
Can you incorporate this into rental properties anyhow?
That's our intent, and that's what, one of the things that we're trying to get, that's a little unique about this process is, in most places, they do it only as an owner occupied. Since we have 40% rentals, I think it's really key that we have a program that addresses rentals as well, and that's one of the parts of our program design.
You can reasonably assume it's the rental houses that really
it?
need work
40% of the
too.
problem.
Probably more than 40% of the problem.
So I guess,
Got any questions for Chris on that? Do you do these assessments yourself?
so we're still working that out, but my guess is no. It would be, so one of the things that we've really struggled with is, we could get the training and do the assessment. I'm not so much worried about doing the assessment and identifying the measures. The challenge that we really have is in the modeling of the savings to make sure that it's right. We've been looking at this for 2 to 3 years, and coming up with the right modeling software to get it right has been, I can't get within 20% on commercial or downloaded we've tried many ways to get that modeling right, and using real world data, and I can't hit it. And the other part is I don't have the expertise to follow up with the contractors and make sure that the implementation of all the measures is done correctly. So we would be looking at probably some outside help to do that. We've been, one of the things we did on the trip when I went down to Atlanta, I spent a lot of time with the company that we were looking at that would come in and do the assessment. They would work with local, this is kind of a neat way that they're talking about it. So they would come in and they would work with local contractors and train them on how to do the assessments. And then when they went into a house, the contractor's going through the house, but then this company, they're located in Arkansas, they would walk through with the iPad, right? So they've trained the contractor to look at stuff, but then they're also saying they're using their person that's done this on hundreds of homes and thousands of homes to say, hey, go take a look at this or this or this and make sure you snap a picture so I can see that too. So they do the assessment, then they put together a proposal for the homeowner, and they say they're the ones that have the modeling software as well that they say is accurate. So they'll present that offer to the homeowner. and then they will, the contractors will come in and do the work. They'll verify that the work was done correctly before payment is released. And then, so you would have that third party handle that part of it, the verification, modeling, and the assessments.
Does that cost go to the construction cost, or is that cost that we pay for?
That's cost we would pay for. So that's part that's offset by the, part of that is offset by the reduction in the peak, right? And then we'll see further reductions, or that peak will help pay back the savings too. So one of the things we did when I went up to Tuesday after I stopped in, after we went up to Jefferson, I visited folks at IEDA to say, hey, I'd like to bring this company up, and I'd like to vet them a little bit, but I want help. And so IEDA and the Energy Office has an interest in visiting with this company. Iowa State, they have a person that's been working on residential home energy efficiency and modeling. And they're interested. So I think what we can do is get that company to come here and bring these folks down and spend a day really going detailed evaluation of whether or not they do the job well. I've spent enough time with them. I think they can do a good job, and I've talked to CEOs of 2 different RECs that have worked with them, and they speak highly of them, but I still think it's worth having, other people vet them here.
Chris,
That's all to be decided, I'm not saying this is the program. This is how I'm thinking about it now.
Chris, do you have a sense for an implementation timeline?
Well, I really would like to see us begin to make offers, bring people in and do assessments and begin to make offers in the first part of the new fiscal year. We know that we can get up and running and start, just make sure everything's working and get that done before, say, mid-October, because as soon as it starts getting cold, that's when we start getting the calls to say, hey, can you help? And we know that if we've got the system figured out before we get there, then once the cold breaks in, then we'll be ready to do those audits.
How much time do you think it'll take to do that? I mean, staff time?
To get ready?
Because I'm assuming that we bring an inspector in here simultaneously?
Yeah, so what we talked about for housing inspection, I think, is a separate deal.
I understand that, but do we do that also? As far as it relates to this, or it's just this company does everything?
Well, they'll do the audit, they'll do the working with contractors and training them in the verification of the job.
How much of your time?
I would anticipate most of my time being in the first 6 months between now and when we get it set up, and then the first few times identifying contractors. We've done that. We've got a list of all the contractors in Davis County and the surrounding counties, including in Missouri. We've been working through the legal process some. We've identified, some of these service providers. So we've been doing a lot of this work, and really Warren and Gage, that's what they are tasked with as Vista service members. So I'm leading them. They're doing a lot of the lift. A lot of mine is just working with these resources that at the state level and around the country that are helping us to do the evaluation and planning.
You got a short explanation as to how it would work with a rental property?
So there's no difference in how we work with a rental property versus
But the homeowner doesn't pay the utilities, so does the renter pay maybe work it out with the renter that, okay, I'm gonna pay this to cheapen up my utility bill, but how do you take it off the rent? How are you thinking that?
Yeah, so in my assumption is that we would design this the same for whether it's an owner or a rental, and that when they make the offer, that it is based upon a repayment plan that uses no more than 80% of the cost savings, right? So if you're gonna save $100, you're not gonna spend more than $80 on cost recovery for the investments. And that's, it's important this isn't a loan to the house or it's not a loan, period. It's an investment by the utility into, energy, demand savings measures in that home for which we do cost recovery, and we can attach that cost recovery to the bill.
So if a renter moves out and the next renter moves in.
It's still attached.
What if it sits empty for 4 months?
So that's the risk, is if an empty house, but how many rental properties are sitting empty right now? The homes that we have sitting empty are rentals.
So, just to be clear, say my utility bill is $200 a month, and we did some measures and we knocked my utility bill down to $120 a month.
Right.
Okay, that my use becomes $120 a month. So what am I gonna pay you this month?
So
Am I
if
gonna pay
it's
you
200,
80%
so
of that
80% of
savings?
$80, right? So
Okay.
$80 is your savings, you're gonna pay $64.
So I'm still gonna pay,
64 on top of the 120, so you're paying 184 instead of 200.
Okay.
You're seeing a savings. It's not a huge savings. Once those costs are recovered, then you'll get the full savings.
So does that go on
until it's balanced.
until it's paid off, or is
Yeah.
there a time, so it could be 20 years?
Well, so yes or no, you look at the lifetime of the measures. So you're not gonna put in a 40-year payment plan on a 10-year furnace, right? I mean, that's all calculated in. This is how long this will last, and then you figure the savings that you're gonna receive over the lifetime. And most of these programs are designed for no more than a 10-year payback or cost recovery system.
Well, so there's gotta be a.
Pardon?
What if an owner occupied house but it changes hands?
Same issues with the rental.
It continues to the next
It's
owner?
just attached to the bill as part of as a
So
cost
there's-
recovery.
So there's gotta be a spending limit per value of the house or savings. It's not like you can take a $20,000 house and do $40,000 worth of energy savings.
Right, and in other places where they've done this, they're averaging about $10,000 a home.
With an owner occupied, you would probably never see a gap. Unless the place is vacant and somebody's trying to sell it, but I mean, they still gotta pay utility bills. Even if they're small utility bills, they still have to pay them. To me, the risk, as Chris noted, is if you have a rental unit that is vacant.
But can you implement where the property owner has to pay that in the months that
you could do it when,
nobody's in there?
could you do it when if the property owner sells the property, you know, if.
It'd be a.
I want to be clear, this is an important distinction, right?
Yeah.
We're getting into some gray area in terms of, I can't give you a loan and obligate the next owner, right? Can't happen. So if in that case, we would have to settle the debt before the new owner took possession, right?
Okay,
It's like
We're not giving a loan.
okay, gotcha.
It's like
It's an investment into measures that happen to be on the house. It would be city-owned property until the cost was recovered.
Okay,
And that's why it rides with that. Those measures there's an item on the bill until the costs are recovered, and it doesn't matter who occupies or owns the property.
okay.
We've looked hard to
That goes
find a
back to a
solution
little
that
bit
will work
where-
with renters.
You know, if we change things where the homeowner of the rental has to be on the agreement for the electric and the water and the sewer and all that, so that we can't get stuck with them. And if you did it, if you made that resolution into place, then they would have to continue to at least pay that amount when it was empty, so there would never be a gap.
So the city, just one more clarification, the city and the utility can't lend money like this, right? We're not lending, we're investing to keep our costs down.
What was your dollar amount?
So, $1 million,
But you see,
but not as a one-time shot, right?
It's a revolving loan. you're gonna have a $2 million line of credit that's, it may never reach over 1.
But you're talking about 10-year payback, so that's a long revolver.
But I'm just, like I told Scott, it could go on for a really long time.
I think that the thing I understand here is that we plugged in $1 million as a starter. It's not like this is the be all and end all, because if this thing really gets off the ground, we're gonna do $1 million. We're not gonna get any real big money back, because I'm assuming that with the paybacks that we get, then we would revolve it into the next $1 million.
Right.
So I think the point is that we gotta have $1 million up front, or effectively a line of credit. However we get that line of credit, or whether it's a bond, I mean, we have the capability. I don't know how we start this thing out, other than the fact that maybe we cash flow it to see if it gets off the ground, and then you make a commitment to do this bond. I don't know. The timing to me is gonna be predicated on how the program is succeeding, as opposed to we gotta borrow the money and then off we go.
I do think, I think that's good, but I also think there's also opportunity here for some outside funding sources.
Okay.
So, I mean, so that would just be a bonus, right? And but I think there's a good chance.
I mean, what would really be nice is if we got $250,000 of downstroke money here up front, so that we know we got something to roll from. Because if this thing does take off, then, $1 million might not even be enough, but we gotta have at least something out front. I mean, problem is we're spending the.
Well, we got 120 sitting in the unbilled financing right now.
Right. You think that's enough to start it?
Well, I mean,
10 houses?
That's 12, right? So it would get us kicked down the road, but the question, yeah, so it's something. I think if we plugged in and if we talked about $1 million, it shows that we're committed to doing it and rolling it, and it'll make it easier to go after that outside funding too.
I think the thing about, as far as how we do this budgetarily, is that we either set up the account. I mean, the account is already done. We already have the account for this. If we need to do a revenue bond because we see this thing taking off, maybe what we do is not put the $1 million in the budget, but rather just say, we'll amend the budget at the time when we make the financing commitment. But we're gonna, if this thing takes off, what we're saying right now, if this thing takes off, we're gonna have to get $1 million here. And then hope it pays off.
Chris is gonna sign the paper, makes the person liable, right?
It's as good
I
as a
see
piece
it
of paper.
happen 2 ways. It's either gonna kind of kick off, it's kind of gonna slowly progress, or it's gonna move.
Maybe there's a different way of, we have to look at.
There's a lot of stuff we
Financing.
can go into. I mean,
There's a lot of financing strategies that we can talk about. Maybe it's, we do,
I know.
maybe we do a $250,000 borrowing, like a 5-year bank note or something like that, as opposed to a bond, but recognize that that's just a starter to get to that next level. But right now, I would say that we don't put any money in the budget to show that, but recognize that this is out there.
Okay. All right.
Old Law Center Administration Department, $30,000 for preliminary work. We have to secure the building from a standpoint of getting the mold out and cleaning it up. There might be some work related to the exterior of the building from a standpoint of getting stormwater managed here, right? And I think that we also need to do a needs assessment as to if we're going to go into this building, what kind of spaces do we need and what kind of allocations of those spaces? I've done this before in another community where one of the things that we do is we assess what we have and assess what we need as far as our employees are concerned in their workspaces.
But
That way-
our grant to just tear it down.
Well, you wanna do that?
I'd like to build a new city hall across there. At some point.
You wanna spend the money? I don't know how you find money for that. You'd have to pass a referendum.
I'd
to
rather
do it.
do that, spend 30,000 doing that than spend 30,000 on what we got and still not
If you
have
build a new building, new building, you're still gonna wind up having to do a needs assessment as far as what you're gonna do for organizing the spaces.
I know, but we're not doing it on something we're not gonna have.
Is that the case?
I think it's worth more discussion. I can't see spending 30,000 on that building right now. I mean, it's a number, leave it in there. I mean, we can work on it later. We can change it if we need money somewhere else.
Well, I mean, if you don't wanna do this and you just wanna make a commitment to tear it down, then let's just do it. I mean, I need to have direction from you all.
Otherwise, we'd use it for office space, I think, right, or what? Yeah.
Well, the assumption is to
So-
use for office space. Realize that we can make up to $400,000 of improvement without having to go to referendum.
Can the existing building be used for office space and added on to for a city hall, or what are you thinking, Dan? Need to scratch it and start over?
Personally, yeah. I'd like to just start over and build one level building. So you have to have an elevator. I'm not saying that's where you build it, but I'm saying don't spend any money on that building. We're throwing out ideas and options and opinions here. That's mine. What's yours?
I need to go through.
Jack likes my idea.
What do you like?
I don't know, I'd like to see it, I guess, first.
Well, you gotta keep a building there for all the tower and all of that.
I think it's on the,
So we
it's the
have to
next
keep,
item.
well, then we're
No,
getting a
it's
whole,
not.
no?
That's not the same tower.
Oh, that's
Okay.
not the same tower.
We're spending a whole lot of money, and if I hear tower on budget, it's like, man, it's 10.
I think maybe what we ought to do to start with is find out what a new building would cost in a general sense.
I mean, I'm
That's gonna
fine
be
with-
it's gonna be based upon how much of a building we need to have.
I'm fine with leaving the number and putting it under that category.
The footprint that you got right now, you're gonna have to use 2 floors to make it happen.
How many square feet are there? You know?
I just walk through the spaces and understand the building. It's you have a 2-story city hall.
Yeah.
And you're gonna utilize all of that building, I think.
And it requires an elevator.
Well, but the elevator can't be the only criteria here to
Right.
be concerned about.
Elevators are high priced.
New buildings are high priced too.
Yeah, they're talking millions.
But one level ones ain't as high as 2 stories. Steel building, nice steel frame building ain't that high.
What's the exterior gonna look like?
Just have a steel building. Do brick at the bottom and metal on the top part.
I mean, these are decisions you all have to make, but if you're gonna use that site as your footprint, that's not big enough. You gotta have 2 stories.
The building that's there.
Right.
I understand that. We're talking about opinions and ideas. That's mine.
Okay.
Well, then if we don't wanna do anything with it, why don't we sell
You wanna buy
it?
I think this
I
time
don't know,
it's gonna
we-
take some more
What do
consideration.
you do it for $1?
it. I mean, I'd leave the number in there.
I agree.
I mean, no matter if we tear the building down or keep it, we're gonna have to have the money to do
We're
something.
gonna spend some of this money on trying to make that decision. I agree.
Well, let's hope that we can do some of this in-house, okay? Instead of hiring a professional to come and do a huge needs assessment, we can walk around and look at that, can't we? And make some, Denny? Is that something you can do part of?
I can do it.
Yeah, I can do it.
I can tell you how this works is that you have, any one of us cannot make that decision, or any couple of us can't make the decision. You need to talk about spaces, you need to talk about people who are utilizing that spaces and ask them their opinions. And you know who would do this, could do this? HRG.
But we spent part of that.
Yep.
And we don't need this budget for them, we got them over here.
I got to replace some.
All right, let's leave the 30 in there for now.
All right,
I do need some money to replace that sidewalk, so I guess I gotta do that.
now you take it out of that 30.
Yeah. You had your chance earlier.
Let's roll, come on, let's
Public
go a little
Works,
faster.
Public Works real estate cleanup. In other words, we got 2 houses we need to tear down.
Yeah.
20,000. Plus tearing down some trees and stuff like that.
To clean up that, basically clean up that block.
Yep,
Mhm.
okay?
Be money well spent.
Radio tower for the AMI. This is the second phase. In other words, everybody tells me that come April, we're gonna be online and instead of dealing with these terrible, old, falling apart readers that is creating all kinds of consternation, by April, we will have one reader and we can get the town done in less than a day by one person. As opposed to 3, 4, 5 people over a 3-day period of time, assuming that they work. The next phase of this though is that you do radio broadcast to a centralizing tower that comes straight into City Hall. Nobody goes out and reads, and simultaneously the data that we can get is a lot more
Timely.
well, not just timely, but it's also more detailed. And AMI is gonna really be necessary if we get into the next level of stuff that Chris is talking about, as well as just making improvements in the electric system itself.
Do we need this to do the one guy for 1 day program?
Nope, you've got that spent already.
Let's get that guy for 1 year. To do it, and let's talk about tower next year.
So you wanna do it in fiscal 21?
Yeah, I mean, I think, here's the thing. I think we're probably there's gonna be a learning curve, because otherwise I wanna ride with that guy the first day we switch for that 1 day and see how it works. We gotta have some quirks and some glitches and stuff that we're gonna have to work through, so let's get all that worked through, doing it with one guy for the day, and then let's do the tower.
I think that if we did the tower, it would not occur until literally 15, 18 months from now. At the end of the fiscal year. But the thing about it is the one guy that we're gonna have right now, he's not gonna go up to meters anymore.
Well, what kind of money are you talking?
120,000.
120.
Let's kick that off for another year.
Huh?
I'm with you, I say we put that down the road for another year.
Do we need, okay, here, let's do this. Do we need, so if we did 20,000, would that get us some engineering stuff and get ready for it, or is it a one and done?
One and done.
My opinion, 0 for this year.
Does everybody wanna kick it for a year? I mean, I'm asking, that's why we put it on the list to find out whether you want to do it or not.
I mean, we've been throwing a lot of numbers in places, I'm afraid we're gonna get to the end, it's gonna be a huge number.
How about we earmark it, huh? I mean,
Where would you put it? Where'd you go?
We don't know yet, right?
It's not gonna be anything like the tower next to the
It could be on a,
center.
it could be
Put it
on
on a pole.
Yeah, it could be on a pole. So it's actually probably 2 towers, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's 2 antennas. So you've got $100,000 for the antennas and the equipment, and then you got about $20,000 for software. So, it's,
so the software, is that gonna,
you're gonna have some repeated costs on the software.
but is that software gonna get us automated a lot quicker than what we've got coming, or is it gonna be, I mean, cause that's a big piece.
Part of what we're experiencing right now is with this changeover, again, we're experiencing a lot of issues. And so one of the reasons the towers came up, I think, a little ways down the thing, because we thought we'd need some transition time. But I think the thing is, if we'd skipped some of this, we're not gonna transition twice. It's gonna create twice of issue. Also we're having too is our handhelds are old.
So we're gonna look at having to do some upgrading anyway and pay for handholds, and those aren't cheap, they're probably what, 12,000? I don't know what, I forget, he hasn't quoted us.
But the handhelds are gonna be done in April.
No, you'll still need two at least to do your read routes,
Well,
that's
gonna
that'll be
be,
the drive-by routes, so you'll need those, but so, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's been pretty painful, and I know that, it's gonna be painful getting this switch. I'd like to experience pain once to be done.
Is it, do you think it's vital for some of this instead of
So,
the program?
right,
We just talked about.
I mean, is there
it vital
software
for
that we buy, can we buy software now that we can use later?
Can we,
storage, you buy storage.
no, not really, let me go back to John's question first. The answer is it vital for this program that we were talking about? So all of the data that we're talking about collecting through the tower will be sitting on the meters. So we can take a computer, if I'm interested in your house, I can go out to a computer and download that meters. So if I want to analyze your house, we can do that without buying the tower. The tower gives us the ability to have that meter, that information on any house at any time, and it gives us alerts and those kinds of things, instant
and
reads.
you don't have to go out.
And you can do it from your office and not have to go to the house.
Can you shut them off from the office?
We didn't buy that kind of meter.
Okay.
You could, and there may be times that we would replace meters that are habitual users, right?
Okay, yeah,
Right?
okay, yeah.
The other thing that you get with this, it allows us, so it's probably my decision here in terms of saying, let's put it off. And these guys are feeling the pain for my decision. I think though, that it's too late to avoid that pain. Honestly, I think we're already experiencing the pain that we're gonna feel in this transition, and we're not gonna avoid a double transition. But I do think that the next transition is much simpler because all of these things should, once they're reading to the car, when you put in a tower, it should recognize to go to the tower instead of the car, and it should just happen. Where the transition is gonna be hard with the tower is not in the reading, but it's in the new software and learning it and doing the analytics and understanding how do you use this software to be more proactive and customer service oriented? Because we're gonna be shifting a burden from people in the field to people in the office, really.
Okay.
So if we wanted to do the tower, there's no way to have the tower up immediately to do it in April when we switch. So that we only buy one software instead of buying one, using it for 6 months and then buying another.
We aren't doing that. We aren't doing that. We aren't buying one software and buying another one down the road. We would just be delaying the towers. We're not buying software now. We would be delaying putting in the tower software.
Okay, so we don't need software to drive the car around and read.
Not new software. We've got that in place. It's the same software we've been using. Based on the performance to date, I can't imagine that we could have a tower up in April.
Okay.
You?
Okay.
We still gotta do the transitions anyway. You're not gonna put a tower really up until you get the transitions done. I mean, the earliest it would probably be is the fall.
Yeah, I mean, you can put the tower up and if you could get the tower up by April, you could begin reading in April. I just can't imagine we could get the tower. I can't imagine that would happen.
No, that's what I'm saying, is for a tower to be put up, we're probably talking fall.
Yes.
I experienced this in Marengo, Illinois. We put them up. Turnaround was 120 days from the time you made the commitment.
I think if you kick this down a year, it's gonna tie in with about the same time that you're gonna potentially be looking at your accounting software. You're gonna have a double transition there. I don't know how much pain that means. From a data collection and implementation, I don't think kicking it a year makes that much difference from the field point of view. I think it's gonna be in the office.
Yeah, they got too soft anyway.
Oh, I tell you what.
Don't come in at the end of the month.
Don't come in and say that at the end of the month.
Yeah.
I mean, those truly are fight words. You don't see those people laughing about it.
It's been painful. It's been really painful.
For a while.
And it's gonna be painful probably through April, till the end of April. It's gonna get less painful, I hope, each month.
Is the new system gonna be able to pick up the gas meters that they've been using working for 2 years quicker?
Yes,
Change
because we're
those.
replacing all of so the problem that we've had on gas meters has been indexes, and all of the indexes have been replaced. Right, no? Am I wrong?
Yeah, no. We don't replace all the index, just the head.
Okay.
So, yeah, we won't replace an index today.
Does it properly read when you're done? Well, that's the part that needs replaced.
That's the issue.
We got gas meters that's
It's
been
reading what the index
added up
does.
for years,
Actually, the real issue
2
with,
and 3 years.
this is again going into future planning.
until now, they just quit.
Majority of our meters, remember, gas meters about 20-year life expectancy. So a lot of our gas meters are out there right now are built in 1994. So we've already exceeded the life of those gas meters. And what happens is when a lot of them are all put in at the same time. So
Mine, the ones that's
they come out
not reading.
sometimes. So that's what we're issuing with the, so the trend is the indexes are timing out.
Okay.
And that's, there's just a little plastic piece on there, and everything else, so that's what my concern is, even now, we're putting on AMI right now, 10 years from now, or, because life expectancy those boxes are putting on, 10 years with the battery life, and so, you know, it's just a cycle on preventive maintenance, getting into the schedules, but we are starting to have some issues with this indexing thing's really starting to rear its head quite a bit, and that's now, but again, without freeing up, just kind of like doing with Parks and Rec, when you free up one thing, you create other work like compost and everything else. So that's why, as the goal is to manage what we're doing now to free up the time to do other stuff we got coming up down the road. So we're looking at, you know, as we free up meter readers, now when we take Todd and Adam away from reading meters, they're also taking away the ability when they've been investigating meters. So when they read it, because you look at it, they're actually doing service, looking at stuff, seeing it's not level, seeing index is not spinning, whatever. Now we're gonna have to get in the cycle, we're going to look at those anyway. So you're changing one thing for another, but yet we're also improving on the ability to read and time, and ideally, in the future, people gotta look at their smartphone and see their gas meter going. So I mean, so.
All right.
Sorry, long explanation.
Radio tower, I'm gonna put 2021.
I'm okay with that.
Yep.
All right, I'll take it off the list.
Sewage treatment upgrade.
No discussion there. We know it's coming. The reason why it's on here is that we have to make it a project account, so we need to put it on.
Okay.
We're saying
On to the next then.
we're saying that there's a $5 million capital improvement SRF loan. That's an estimate, but we'll have more of an understanding this fall when we get to it. The street improvement program, we've already talked about that. That's already approved. We got to make that a budget line item likewise, so we're going to put in $2 million in there. And finally, the water sewer project that we got the CBDG grant for, we're going to put 1.1 million in that, 600 from the grant, $500,000 that we're going to transfer from internal sources that we talked about at the last meeting from the standpoint of whether it's a water utility or leftover money from USDA money that Brenda is going to be talking with the summit people tomorrow to make sure that we have the right number pulled out of there, but we think that there's a lot of money sitting dead that will actually cover that cost. That's it, unless you all have something else you want to add.
I'm gonna ask about this. What about the old water plant? Is there any timeline on us getting them Clear Lakes taken care of?
Farewell and
What do you wanna do?
I don't wanna do anything. I just, we're bringing everything else up. Is there a timeline that we have to do anything?
There's no, I've researched that, we've done what we're going to do, if we need to do anything, it's the 2 collection ponds on the one side, we need to probably blow those out. And do something, but we could do that too, operations we want to do.
All right.
That's the only thing we need to do, everything else is clear, but I think we need to start scrapping it a little bit by little and get stuff out of it.
Just wanna make sure.
Street lights and square lighting.
you want to call that a TIF project?
I don't care what we call it, what kind of project it is. The street lights are on the square.
We could do it that way.
Street lights out in the streets.
We could make it an operational cost, put it in electric budget, one way or the other.
We need to start getting some of our infill street lights back in, and
You can take mine out.
well, can you move it to another spot? And the square lighting, I know we've got issues with voltage or whatever it is up there,
See
but
the one going.
I mean, half the time, half or more of them are out.
Danny, do you have a sense for what it costs?
No,
But I don't know if it's quality of lights, light bulbs, or if it's low voltage or what it is.
it's a different, it's complicated light at the head. There's some dentists have been fabricating lights to try to keep them going. So, but on the one side with CMTL side, that whole one side, the fuse won't hold. And I think when they put a sign in, the street parking sign, they got into that line. So we're shorting it out. So we need to do some research on that side.
That's important, but I'd like to have the ones around the main square.
And we've been working on that one on the corner and it's still.
That's a bulb issue.
Yeah. Well, we changed that, but we're back to it again.
We'll come up with a number. Anything else?
Oh. Remodel tax abatement. Like if somebody spends 25 or 30,000 on a house, energy savings, whatever, possibly doing a tax abatement on the increase in value for 3 to 5 years just for improving their properties. It's something to talk about, think about.
Okay.
I need to budget anything for it. There's other towns that have a plan, and maybe that's an EV committee thing. I'm not sure.
Can we go back a year?
Well, for housing, it probably.
Go back 3.
For housing, it probably isn't. For housing, it probably isn't, but you're talking about retail, and that's a different story, yes.
And, it could fit under both. All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, second. All in favor?
Aye.